Special Operations, Covert Ops, Espionage, The Team House, with your hosts, Jack Murphy and David Park.
Welcome to episode 201 of The Team House. I'm Jack Murphy, here with David Park, and our guest on tonight's show is Dustin Ward. Dustin served in the infantry as a sniper and in the long-range reconnaissance teams, and then went over to the Ranger Regiment and served as a platoon sergeant in the battalion Recce section, amongst other positions that you had over there. And Dustin, thank you for coming out here to godless New York City.
No, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for the invite.
Fly it up here, man. It's awesome to have you here in person.
Thank you.
So, look, we're going to start at the beginning. So tell us about, kind of like how you grew up and sort of like what it was that sort of like directed you towards the military.
What's your origin story?
My
Dustin?
origin story.
Yeah.
So I was born to a military family. My dad was in the Air Force, served 22 years. My mom was a typical stay-at-home mom, military spouse. I have a brother as well, he's 5 years younger. Moved around a lot. I was born in Mississippi. And then we pretty much ended up in North Dakota for the majority of my life. My dad worked on B-52s. So Minot, North Dakota, great place if you ever get a chance to go. Towards the end of that, moved down to Texas, and that's where I graduated high school and joined the Army and stuff. But, growing up, I said I had an awesome household. My dad was gone a lot, TDY, taking care of the family. Mom took care of us at home, and I just had this outdoorsman military mentality growing up. Like I was always wearing my dad's BDUs. We're outside playing a set of hide and seek. We called it manhunt.
Yeah.
To make it more manly. But anytime I went back to my grandparents' house in Missouri, I was out in the woods. I've probably been shooting guns since I was 6 years old, shooting 22s and hunting squirrels, hunting deer. I always knew I was going to join the military. I think one of my favorite movies still to this day, as dumb as it is The Rock.
Mm-hmm. It's a great movie. It's a lot of fun.
It's a good movie, and I just remember having like a little Play MP5 and had this little battery charger for a Game Boy that had a cord, and I'd put it in my ear like it's an earpiece. My dad freaking out. He thought I was going to shock myself with this battery charger. But I don't know. I always had this war mentality. I think every able-bodied male should serve their country in some aspect, and that's the route I took. I did initially join the Air Force after high school. I was in the DEP program. Uh-huh. I was going to pass all the prereqs, and I was going to be a PJ. But they told me, hey, we'll call you within 6 months to leave for basic. And I was like, nah, man, I quit my job yesterday. So I took a year off after high school, just kind of enjoy after high school life. And they're like, well, that's not going to happen because there's only so many pipelines a year, and you have to hit the pipeline at a certain time or go to basic at a certain time, something like that. So I walked across the hall of the Army recruiter and walked in, and there's this big cardboard cutout of a Green Beret standing there, and he's like, what do you want to do? I was like, I want to jump out of planes and shoot people, man. How do I do that? And he showed me the old cliche, Ranger recruiter video, guy coming up out of the swamp. He's He's actually my friend now. I know him. It's kind of funny.
we have that. Well, we have the documentary over there.
The VHS tape.
The VHS.
His name's Mike Connor. But showed me that, and it's, like I said, cliche. He put his arm around me. I was like, that could be you, man.
Yeah.
I was like, you're right. I was like,
got another one.
Yeah.
I was like, that could be me. He's like, yeah, sign here. You leave in 2 weeks, and here's $20,000. I was like, sweet.
You got an enlistment bonus for that?
Oh, yeah.
That's fantastic. What year was this?
It was 05.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the world was already kind of on fire in terms of like military and
Yeah, and I remember when the war kicked off in 03, not the Afghan war, obviously, but the Iraq war, and my buddy and I, at the time, I think it was AOL, IM, AIM, so they were messaging each other like, oh my God, we need to hurry up. The war's going to be over by the time we get out of high school. Like, lo and behold, 20 years later, still going on. So I had plenty of time to enjoy the war. But Yeah, they gave me a bonus. It was a Special Forces intent bonus. Just the intent. Didn't actually have to go.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Joined the Army in 05. January 05.
Now, did they have an X-ray program at that time?
They did. I was an 11 X-ray.
Okay.
Dodged that bullet.
Oh, an 11 X-ray. Yeah, I went in 11 X-ray too. I meant an 18 X-ray though. Could you enlist straight into it?
You say you dodged that bullet. What does Les say about all this?
Les, awesome guy, man. That's why I'm here, because of Les. He told me to give a shout out, so I'll give a shout out, Les. But yeah, did not become an 11 Charlie. Became 11 Bravo. I don't know if the 18 X-ray program was a thing at that time.
Yeah, I think it was around by then.
Was it? Okay. So I went to SVS in 07, and there were some 18 X-rays there, so it might have been. Yeah.
Now, so for people who are watching and don't know, in the military jobs, the MOSs, the 11 series is the infantry series, and the Charlie is Bravo is rifleman, Charlie is mortarman. They also used to have 11 Mikes, which was motorized. I don't know if that was still a thing.
Yeah.
But when you go in X, you're gambling. You're rolling the dice.
I think all of us were 11 X-ray. I don't think you can go in specifically for Bravo.
Oh, you can't?
I don't think you can, no.
Ugh. Now, did you know you were rolling the dice? Did you know
I did not.
Yeah.
They did not explain that at MEPS. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so you go to basic, do all of that, and then where do you go from there?
So I graduated basic training in May of 05.
And you got 11 Bravo.
Got 11 Bravo. Went to Fort Lewis, Washington. Kind of my basic training cohort at that time. There's a unit standing up at Fort Lewis called a 2nd Cavalry Regiment, 2CR. They just moved up there from Fort Polk, I think. But they're standing that unit up, so we were the first lower enlisted guys there besides senior leadership. When we showed up, the first question they asked was, hey, out of all you who qualified expert in basic training, kind of raised my hand, like sniper section. I was like, hell yeah.
Sweet.
That worked out.
Yeah.
But, and the funny backstory with that is, my mom would tell a story, and she'll laugh about it. But I was probably in 5th or 6th grade. We're at like a family reunion down in Missouri somewhere, and one of my relatives asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up, and I said something about being an assassin. And my mom looked at me and looked at my relative and was like, Dustin, shut up. Like, do not say that. I was like, sorry. But when I went to sniper section, I called my mom like next day. I was like, guess what?
I made the same mistake when my high school guidance counselor asked me what I wanted to do with my life, and I said, I want to join the military and be a sniper. Yeah. And this very nice woman sat there and she said, well, follow your dreams.
I mean, if we're all going to embarrass ourselves, like when I went to the Army recruiter and asked them about special forces, I asked them if there was a knife guy. I wanted to be the knife guy.
The knife throwing expert.
Yeah, because, because I thought there was a demo guy, there was a gun guy, there was
That's what G.I. Joe led us to believe.
That is where, G.I. Joe and the A-Team is where I got my knowledge on special forces.
Nice.
So you became an assassin for the Army.
Became an assassin for the Army. I did that from 05 to 08. In that time frame, I did that unit I was in reflagged to 2nd Infantry Division, and then we deployed to Iraq for 15 months during the surge. We spent 3 months in Baghdad. That was about 3 months in Baghdad, and then went and ripped out with a new unit, or unit replacing in Bakuba, or Bakuba, however you want to say it, in Fob Warhorse. We spent the rest of the deployment there, and that was the Wild West. That was a
Now, out of curiosity, you were one of the first guys to show up to the sniper section, this newly formed unit. Did they send you to the Army Sniper School like immediately?
No, I didn't go until like March of 06.
And then did they have anybody with experience come on to be like
We all went together.
So there was
team leader and all shooters went to sniper school together.
So one of the challenges with snipers sometimes is having somebody who can teach young officers how to properly employ snipers, right? How did you guys manage that, especially for your first deployment?
So they had this course at the time called the Sniper Employment Officer course.
Okay.
And I can't remember if our PL went to it or not, but I mean, he was all about letting us do our thing, and he didn't micromanage us at all. He's like, hey, whatever ranges you want, whatever shooting you have to do, you guys go do that. Just be proficient at your task. And when we got the M107 Barretts, we got those, and they held a course kind of locally on Fort Lewis for that, just to kind of break them in and get to know the weapon system. So he came to that too, kind of learned the job a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, the squad leader I had at the time, one of my favorite squad leaders I ever had. I look up to him to this day and kind of base my leadership skills off him. He had that SF mentality of everyone needs to know everybody's job, and just kind of spread the knowledge. And he was prior service, got out, came back in, so he had some experience. Already done a couple deployments, but he let us do our thing. It was good.
That was awesome.
So what was the mission up at Bakuba?
So it was funny. When we were in Baghdad, JSOC was obviously operating in Iraq, and they were doing at the time, I think we called them TST missions, time-sensitive target missions, and they would get a lock on a guy and launch. Mm-hmm. Well, there were so many targets, they didn't have enough personnel to hit all these targets, so they came down and trained us how to do it. The sniper platoon, or sniper team, battalion snipers, and battalion Recce platoon, which I was in. Snipers are part of battalion Recce in the big army. Trained us how to do it and how to use the assets and everything. So we tagged along in that mission. We were sharing targets with them, which was probably one of the better ways to spend 15 months.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because the rest of the line companies, they were out in a little outpost in the middle of the city, just burning poop in a barrel. I felt so bad for those guys because we just go out, hit a target, come back, and go to sleep.
Yeah.
But that was our target set, our mission set. What we did for 15 months, go out almost every night, and we did. It varied from based off the target and based off what happened when we got to the target. Doing silent entries and silent clears and waking them up in their sleep and taking their guns from them while they're sleeping. Mm-hmm. Legit, taking their guns from them while they're sleeping and then waking them up.
Yeah.
Hey, sorry, we're here.
Yeah.
Or it'd be a cordon and call out. Just depend on the situation. But
And about what year was this?
that was 07 to 08.
Okay. Yeah. So people had kind of moved beyond the explosive breaching when they could do something else generally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't do any explosive breaching.
Yeah.
We didn't have that capability in the big army.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the most explosive breaching we did, we'd drive a striker through the gate.
Yeah. Yeah.
It worked.
So they kept you guys pretty busy. And I mean, that was a busy time in Iraq to begin with.
Yeah. Like I said, Baca was a Wild West. When we showed up, the sister unit we were replacing from 3rd Brigade to ID. We were 4th Brigade to ID. They were 3rd Brigade to ID. And I think they had 12 working strikers at the time when we showed up because they were just getting blown up. There was 70 SIGACs a week when we got there. And then after us being there for, I don't know, 3 to 4 weeks, it dropped to 12 SIGACs a week. And we put a hurting on them so bad. I mean, the biggest IEDs going off, maybe pop a tire on the striker. And there were some suicide bombers that hit personnel, but as far as vehicle IEDs, they weren't doing much.
What did you guys do to change the tempo?
A strict curfew, and then every military age male got pretty much rounded up and then put in the bat hide system.
Yeah.
So biometrics.
Yeah.
Rounded them all up, put them in bat hide system, and then strict curfew, and then I won't say any names, but I mean, an IED would go off somewhere, and this wasn't my direct unit, it was another company. But I remember IED would go off, and if he saw a dude on a phone anywhere near that, he'd just shoot him.
Yeah.
And they learned, hey, don't mess mess around.
Yeah.
These guys aren't playing. And Baghdad was that was hot at the time too. Before we went to Bakaba, we were responsible for putting in all the T-walls. I don't know if you guys remember that. All the T-walls through Baghdad, Dora sector, which was, there's a lot of infighting between Sunni and Shia. They were just murdering each other left and right. And I think it was like our second or third week during Recce rides for the entire deployment. I mean, we just pulled up and there's like 5 dudes hogtied and executed on the side of the road. We're like,
Jesus.
We're like, what the heck is going on? And you bang on the door and like, hey, what's up with the bodies in the road? They're like, what bodies?
Yeah.
This house going to be, huh?
Yeah.
And it was hot.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
So what were your when you weren't working for doing the TSTs? What was sort of the conventional army? Were you guys doing a lot of presence patrols? Were there a lot of targets that you were?
They did just clearance ops. It was almost like it's just a vicious, endless cycle. You start in this sector and start working your way around the city, and by the time you get back here, you're starting all over again. Because all the guys you pushed out of here are down here now, So they just kept doing that. We did a lot of palm grove clearing.
Yeah.
Just online, walking through these palm groves in 120-degree heat, trying to find caches.
Yeah.
IEDs and stuff.
Do you
like
find
that.
a lot?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember distinctly one time, it got handed over to us. We didn't find it specifically. We went out and took it over because I think the people that found it detained the personnel and then left with them, and then we took over the site. But I mean, there was over 500 anti-tank mines double stacked, like in rows, like almost in a farmer's field. They're just lined up, like 5 or 6 55-gallon drums filled with initiators and timers, and God, how many, like 200 5-gallon jugs of nitric acid. There's a Suburban rigged with a VBID, like ready to go. I mean, the funny thing is, after we gathered all that and bipped it and whatever, the EOD guy, he's like, yeah, we probably knocked this cell out for like 2 weeks. I was like, that's it? 2 weeks? Like all that for 2 weeks? It was crazy, man.
You guys demo it in sight?
EOD did.
Yeah.
Did you, now being in like the sniper, was it a section or a platoon?
We had, it was just a section.
It was
A team, a squad in the Recce platoon.
Okay. Yeah. So you fell under Recce then? Mm-hmm. So how did you guys operate in that environment? Were there a lot of sniper specific missions? Were you working with Recce a lot, or were you just kind of folded in to the line units?
Folded in. No, we didn't fold in with the line units. We did our own thing with the TST missions with Recce. Pretty much Overwatch as the Recce platoon was hitting a compound, or if a line company was doing like a med cap, we would go out there and do Overwatch while they were doing like a med cap, or hand out soccer balls at a school. We would pull Overwatch while they were doing that. Platoon leadership changed out through deployment, and we had one PL that he was an ex-SF guy, enlisted SF guy, and went OCS. But he was all about us doing what snipers do, and he's like, hey, I don't care where you guys go, what you do, as long as you follow ROE, give me a 10-digit grid and have a radio. Mm-hmm. So we'd trunch off into the hinterlands with 3 or 4 guys and a radio.
That's fantastic. I mean,
just watch for guys in place in IEDs.
Yeah, I mean, and the reason I said it's fantastic for people to know, like, and especially in conventional, but in any unit, there's really a lot of rules. There's a lot of control. There's not a lot of freedom for you guys to do. But if you guys kind of do your own missions,
a lot of younger PLs don't understand how to utilize any sort of like special unit or a special team, be it mortars, snipers, reconnaissance. So it's cool that.
Yeah, I'd say they don't. Not to bash new PLs, but they don't understand. They don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah,
they don't want to get in trouble either. They don't want to overstep.
Right. Right.
But that mission, I wouldn't say mission, but letting us go out and 3 or 4 guys to do our own thing was, you know, we were sitting in this house one day, and just an example, sitting in this house overwatching this river and this bridge and just waiting for something to happen. But unbeknownst to us, there was a big army, I think it was 1st Cav or something like that. No, whatever the big army unit is with the horse and the slash.
Cav,
yeah. They were doing this big clearing operation through the palm groves that we were in, and they didn't know we were there.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw them coming, we could hear them coming, and they ended up hitting the house that we were up in.
Oh, shit.
We were yelling down the stairs like, "Hey, eagle, eagle, eagle!"
Yeah,
you know. And I remember this first sergeant, he kind of like stomped in, like, "This is my house."
why aren't you wearing your patrol belt or your PT belt? Yeah,
it's pretty much what it seemed like. But he's like, "Who are you guys?" I'm like, "Hey, we're sniper section with this unit." And he's like, "Okay, what are you guys doing?" And we kind of told him, and it was towards the end of our mission time window, anyways. And we're getting ready to exfil, and we're like, "Hey, you're going the direction we're going, right?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Do you mind if we exfil with you guys?" He's like, "Nah, man, go ahead." I was like, "Thank you." Like,
just
it was middle of
your cap. Yeah,
it was like middle of the day. I'm walking
That's
around.
awesome.
Yeah, it's a good time.
Dave, you want to give a shout out to our sponsor tonight?
Yes, so our sponsor tonight is Silent Faraday Bags, SLNT.com. You know, all the vowels are silent, SLNT.com. So having a good Faraday bag, excuse me. So Faraday bags, for those of you who don't know, they block electronic signals from your devices, from your phones, from your laptops, from anything that you may have. They're really great when you're traveling publicly and you're not using your computer, when you are, you know, in an airport, when you're moving around, if you're doing nefarious things, if you're a journalist who doesn't want to be tracked. But also,
sneaky guy.
Also, something I just read is that in San Francisco, criminals are now doing, you know, basically sort of war driving, which is where they go around and they pick up signals coming from laptops that aren't like turned off. There's, you know, putting out signals, and they're breaking into people's cars.
Oh, shit.
If you like leave your, you know, and that's just San Francisco. Like, they can do this anywhere. Your electronics are constantly emitting signals. Having a Faraday bag, like if you go to DEF CON or, you know, or when you travel publicly, having a Faraday bag and making that your default bag to put, you know, your electronics in when you're not using them is a good sound policy, especially as
your
you know,
quote unquote
technology.
business trips to Tehran, whatever you're doing.
Yeah,
we don't
yeah.
need to know.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of like having a VPN when you're just browsing the web.
We don't want it. We're not asking what you're looking at. We're saying
it's a good thing to have. It's a good policy. Check out Silent, SLNT.com. Use promo code TEAMHOUSE for 10% off. That's SLNT.com. Promo code TEAMHOUSE for 10% off.
And I also just want to give a quick promo to the show. If you guys
A
go
shout out to us.
a shout out to us.
Whoa.
If you look down in the description, there is a link to our Patreon if you want to support the channel and you want to have access to all of these episodes ad-free. So go down there and you jump on our Patreon. It's just $5 a month. And also, please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Really appreciate it, guys.
Look, you know, your $5 a month keeps us in the booth.
And it also pays for our legitimate Fios internet connection so we don't have inappropriate hiccups in the stream.
And also keeps us in the booze.
More of that, yeah. So, Dustin, you're after this deployment, you at that point you went over to Lurs, right?
Yeah, towards the tail end of that deployment, the first sergeant came over and said they're standing up a core long-range surveillance unit at Fort Lewis, and if anybody was interested in going, and kind of a military history buff, like even when I was a kid, I had like flashcards of, you know, Fokker airplanes from World War I and World War II and everything. Big military buff, so I knew what LURS was based off Vietnam LURPS books and everything. So I raised my hand, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm interested," because I always wanted to go do something special. And I looked at it as like the next step up the ladder. I wanted to do it right. In my eyes, right was working your way up. unbeknownst to me, you just go to selection, but or just join as an 18 X-ray. But yeah, so I went to that. October 08 is when I went to LURS, like tryouts, and it wasn't anything crazy, just road march, PT test, swim test, stuff like that, land nav, and then yeah, I went there October 08, and then January 09. I went straight to Ranger school, airborne school, everything, and then deployed that next summer in 09. So I was only home for like a year. Went for another year to Iraq.
Now, can you tell us the difference between how a Recce unit, a Recce element might be used in a LURS unit? Is there a functional difference between them?
Compared to
the Recce, like you went from snipers, kind of under Recce to LURS.
Oh yeah. So a LURS reconnaissance detachment operates at a company level by itself. The LURS company operates at a battalion level. Okay. So at a platoon detachment level, we're doing MDMP instead of TLPs.
Right.
So we're mission planning at a battalion level for a 6-man operation or a platoon operation versus a big Army Recce platoon just doing TLPs like in Ranger school.
Right.
And our reporting criteria and CCIR is going much higher than a big Army battalion Recce. It's going to a brigade, battlefield surveillance brigade, which then reports to the Corps and can really shape strategically, I wouldn't say strategically, but theater,
right,
instead of tactically.
Strategically theater, in terms of theater.
And the LURS units are interesting in that they really are, other than maybe RRC, the closest to the Vietnam LRP teams. 6-man teams going out, and if you'll pardon my little digression, my little rant I have, and I'd be interested to hear your opinion, Dustin. The Army keeps disbanding LURS units and then restanding them up, and how many times have we seen them do that just during the GWAT era?
Exactly.
You kind of lived through some of that. I mean, what's your feelings about how we keep seesawing between this and really the capabilities of LURS and what you guys bring to the table as opposed to all the drones and the SIGINT and IMINT and all these other technological capabilities that have been great for the military, but is there still a relevancy to that 6-man team on the ground?
In my personal opinion, professional opinion, there will always be a relevance for boots on the ground intelligence. Yes, IMINT and drones and SIGINT and all that is great. Technology is awesome. The stuff we do with technology is mind-blowing. But can a drone see through the clouds?
Bad weather.
Yeah, bad weather.
Inside a building.
Can those vehicles drive through a muddy road? No. Can 6 guys walk through that muddy road? Yeah. Can 6 guys sit in a hide site for 4 to 5 days at a time and watch an objective, the entire time persistently? Yeah. Can a drone do that? No. It has to go refuel.
Right.
It's got to bring up another drone and, hopefully have a good handoff on IMINT or SIGINT, and then bad weather can force them out too. I would say the limiting factor for 6 guys on the ground is, depending on who the commander is, just medevac.
Right.
Bad weather obviously affects medevac. There's that saying that nothing can stop the U.S. military. Well, that's false. Lightning within 5 will stop it every time.
Right. Right.
But yeah, the whole disbanding and restanding up and they just need to stand them up and keep them.
Right.
There's still National Guard LURS units. I think there's one in Indiana, maybe one in California. I don't know where they're all at. But they need to stand them up, and they need to move them underneath special operations, honestly. If you look at all the other armies in the world, their Pathfinder units, their LURS units are special operations.
Right.
They're Jaeger units.
Why are we the only ones that don't have those guys as special operations?
Right.
It's a special task, and they go to special schools to learn how to do that. And they're, being asked to do extraordinary missions.
Well, and it's funny and sad. Sad. There's probably a German word for that, but but that at the same time, the conventional army is saying these LURS units, whatever. Like there are other things that we can use to replace them. You have RRD, the Ranger Recce detachment, getting bigger and becoming a national level asset where it doesn't even have anything much to do with it's not a regimental level asset anymore. Right. It's a national level asset now because they're like, oh shit, this is really good stuff, you know. And meanwhile, they're like, oh, Lurshing is, but it.
When you went over to Lurs, did you, as far as like the special training, did your team get to go to Arslik or any of that?
Yeah. Pretty much everybody went to Arslik. We did send the first shot of guys going to Ranger school. I mean, I think we sent 12 to 16 guys at one time. It's unheard of.
Yeah.
To Ranger school from one company. You know, to Ranger school one time, you know, half passed, half recycled or whatever. And then while we're there, the rest of the guys went to Arslik. And then after that first push, everybody just kind of trickled into Ranger school in Arslik.
Could you tell the squares out there who don't know the benefit of Arslik, what that course is and what you learn there?
Yeah, Arslik is the Reconnaissance Surveillance Leadership School or Leadership Course. It's called something else now, I believe, because it falls under a CAV unit now.
Really? Yeah. Oh, I thought it was like a TRADOC unit attached to Ranger School and all that.
They transitioned because Fort Knox shut down and moved all the armor to Fort Benning.
Oh,
so now Fort Benning is the Maneuver Center of Excellence.
Wow.
So it's now part of the CAV schools, I think. Don't quote me on that. It's just what I remember, what I think I've heard. Yeah, the Arslik course is an awesome course. It teaches you how to operate in a 6-man element. Teaches you how to do the MDMP process, not TLPs. Communications, and then all your optics and observing equipment. It teaches you how to do that and how to build a hide site and sit there and watch a target for, 4 to 5 days at a time. And then how to possibly break contact as a 6-man element, how to land nav as a 6-man element, just everything that.
Can you tell us a little bit about the difference between a TLP as the troop leading procedures and the MDMP? Like, why is that? What's the difference in that, and why is it meaningful?
Troop leading procedures, in a nutshell, is company level and below. That's for smaller unit operations. It's faster. It doesn't take as much planning. When you get to MDMP, it's battalion echelon planning. So now you're looking at all the major backside support that goes along with an operation. It just takes a long time to plan that.
Can I say something really sarcastic for a second? I wanted to say that, they got rid of Lurch units because they don't need them, they can't afford them. But there were enough officers that they wouldn't fire enough general level officers to rename the Arslik to something, to get their bennies.
Yeah.
Because we don't let go of general officers anymore.
Or admirals and
Yeah.
So second round in Iraq with Lurs. What was the mission this time around?
So we were on the Iranian border in the Hawaza marshes, kind of near Basra.
Oh wow, yeah.
I think we were at a Cobb, not a fob. It was a Cobb Adder, I believe it was called. And we would go out to the Iranian border for 2 weeks at a time, legit living in a patrol base. We were at a border fort. So the Iraqis and Iranians, they have a border fort system. So along the entire border, there's these forts, and it's legit. Like Saddam told his guys he wants forts, and they just Googled fort, and it's a square with like 4 turrets, like 4 turret towers, and that's it. So there's all these dotted up and down the border, and the Iranians have the same thing, just mirrored.
So sort of almost like a DMZ in a way?
It is. I think it's like a 5-kilometer DMZ in between. But yeah, they just mirror each other all the way up and down the border. So we'd go out and link up with the border patrol, Iraqi border patrol. Worthless. But we'd go out there for 2 weeks at a time, living out of our trucks, MREs for 2 weeks, no shower for 2 weeks, shitting in a hole for 2 weeks. We would take trailers, attach them to our Humvees for enough fuel so we can get back. Because it was a 3 to 6 hour drive, depending on what happened on the way there, to get to where we were going. So enough fuel, enough water, enough food. We did do a couple aerial resupplies while we were out there. But yeah, we'd go out there for 2 weeks, live out of our trucks, and our main objective, our main mission was to stop lethal aid from coming from Iran into Iraq. So whether that be money, weapons, explosives, whatever. But we'd sit in that patrol base for 2 weeks, and we'd kick out a 6-man team per night to go do a patrol. And we were pretty free to plan our missions however we wanted. I don't remember there being any restrictions on how far we could go away from the patrol base. It was like, hey, as long as you got 6 guys and know where you're going, I trust you in your training.
How's the food in Tehran?
It was all right.
So, did you have at all any kind of interdiction mission with that, or was it observation?
No, that was our mission. It was interdiction.
It was interdiction.
Yeah. Did we interdict anybody? No. But did we stop them because they knew we were out there? Yeah. They knew we were out there because I remember it was the middle of the day and we were looking at something. We're taking pictures, and I was like, man, this would be a good place for a hide site over here next time we come out. And the Iranian guard tower, it was a good distance away, but they had those big giant drop a quarter in binos like on the Statue of Liberty. And we could see them looking at us. So they knew we were out there. And they also lobbed some mortars at us and shot some PK at us one time. I would say one of the coolest things from that, and I was talking to Jack earlier about it, and I felt bad for the younger guys because they had not deployed yet, and this is towards the tail end of the war.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a lot of conflict, direct engagements going on, and they just wanted to go to war.
Right.
And here we are doing this Recce mission. Well, cool. Like, if you're getting shot at when you're doing Recce, you're not doing Recce properly.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't get shot at, so did a good job. But they didn't see all the bigger picture stuff we were doing, or they didn't understand it. Maybe it was our fault as team leaders not telling them, directly what we were doing. But Iran was flying drones over us, and our unit, our company, not my platoon, but our company was responsible for, creating the first SOP for dealing with Iranian drones, because we were seeing them and we were tracking them on Falcon View, drawing their routes back into Iran. And I remember we scrambled some F-16s to come try to shoot it down, and these F-16s flew out and they radioed down like, hey, we can't fly slow enough to shoot these things. Sorry, it is what it is. We're like, all right. But when we scrambled those F-16s and they're flying up and down the border trying to find this drone, Iran scrambled the F-14s, and they're just going up and down, again, mirroring each other, and we're sitting there like, oh, shit. We're going to start World War III, man. Yeah. We got front row seats. This is cool. That was just one of the cool things that we did, one of the unspoken things that we did that no one really saw or heard about. We did some other stuff. Me and probably 3 other team leaders. We're all still really good friends. Probably the only 11 Bravos that could get their basic aviator badge because we did some ISR missions where we flew in the aircraft.
Oh, cool.
We actually got to fly there. And the pilot was like, yeah, take over.
I'm
going to take a nap.
What aircraft?
It's a Cessna. It's like a Cessna 333, maybe. It's a push-pull. It's like Bat-21. I think Bat-21 is that aircraft. Even their call sign was Bat and had emblems on it and stuff. But it was just pilot, us, and then a sensor operator in the back.
Really?
And flew out to where we were operating. So we'd go out there for 2 weeks, come back for 2 weeks. During that refit time, we would fly with ISR to go continue watching.
That's cool.
What we were supposed to be watching.
Yeah.
Again, it's like a throwback to Vietnam era where you'd have warps flying around with
bird
dog.
dogs.
Was it bird dog,
Yeah,
right?
bird dogs,
The facts.
Yeah,
That's
the
exactly.
spotters,
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, we liked it. We like to joke and say we're like, we're probably the only 11 Bravos that can say that.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool. So that was a good mission. Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, when you guys, because I assume you were pretty far from the nearest air base. How long would it take, F-16s to get to you when you guys called them or scrambled them?
I couldn't even give you a guesstimate on that.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Did you have air assets if the Iranians or
we did. We had Apaches on call. F-16s, obviously. It's funny you bring that up because I remember this guy's name, General Cone. I won't say bad things, but not a fan. He flew out one time to visit us. He was like our MNCI South general.
Gotcha. Yeah.
He came out to visit us, and he was flabbergasted. He's like, "You guys have this support and this support?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "I don't even have that." I'm like, "Well,
You're a general.
You're in a jock. Yeah.
you're not 30 guys out here sitting by yourselves."
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, we did have that support. So, yeah.
That's good.
So that deployment winds down, and when does the Ranger Regiment start to enter into your peripheral vision?
Oh, towards the end of that deployment, probably the year after, we kind of got in that training mindset. You know, the war pretty much over in Iraq. I was still trying to keep my guys in shape and ready to go for Afghanistan. So we were doing a lot of rucking and a lot of hill climbs and stuff like that. But the Lurse unit at Fort Lewis was the only other airborne unit besides 1st Group and 275. So a lot of guys that got RFS from 275 came to the Lurse unit because it's the only other airborne unit. They don't want to lose their jump pay, and they want to keep doing, Ranger things. So I'd say, like 75% of our leadership, senior leadership at the Lurse unit was 275. My platoon sergeant was a 275 guy, and so and so. And they pushed that Ranger mentality, which I loved, the discipline mentality and the respect and everything that you don't see in other units. Honestly, you don't. And then I had a platoon sergeant, Zach, who was a Recce guy at 275, super awesome mentor. I mean, he just texted me the other day talking about, just how proud he is of me and everything. And he's a good guy, and he talked about 275 Recce and Recce this and Recce that, and forced us to have an SOP book and just all the little things that people don't think about, And then RSC came around and gave a recruiting brief for RSC. And I sat in on it, and I was like, I'm going to go do that, because that's like the next step in my Recce path, So I went to RSC selection and went to spring selection in 2012. Did not make it. And then I went to the fall selection that same year and got picked up. And then immediately following RSC selection, you go to RASP to get selected for regiment.
So
That's an interesting.
What is RSC? Is RSC like rope? Is it the new rope? Or?
RASP 2 is what replaced rope.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'd like to just talk about this for a moment, because I think it's really interesting that, again, another little digression, but RRD was the Regimental Reconnaissance Detachment, then became the Regimental Reconnaissance Company, and for the longest time, from when did it stand up? Like 1984. It was the 1980s. It was like 84, I think. And their job was really just to do reconnaissance for airfield seizures. So there were 3 teams. Each team was for each battalion, each of the 3 battalions. And then they kind of grew, especially as the war kicked off, they grew into something else. But those guys were always drawn from within the regiment. And then you were, I think, about probably the first generation of guys that they started recruiting from the conventional military.
Yeah, I think, I'm not trying to put words in anybody's mouths or anything, but I think they realized, there's some good dudes in the big army that could be beneficial.
Right.
Just like any unit. I mean, just like CAG. I mean, they recruit from everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So why weren't they doing the same thing? And I think that's what they realized. And maybe because some guys went from big army to regiment and then RD. Yeah, that might be a reason. I don't know why specifically. Like I said, I'm not going to put words in anybody's mouth, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, back then it was just because it was regimental. Like it was someplace you went from battalion. Like you know what I mean. Then I think it got bigger, and then they also.
Yeah, so it was RD was a detachment from regimental headquarters.
Right.
And then they became a company.
Right.
Under RSTB, Special Troops Battalion, and went from the 3 teams to 8 teams, might be 6 now. I don't know.
What was I'm interested in your experience. What was it like going to selection for that course or for that unit?
I won't get into the specifics of selection because I don't want to ruin it for
Right.
other people going. That's
It's like a spoiler.
it's part of the fun.
Yeah.
I probably signed an
Yeah.
NDA too. I don't remember, but no, it was fun. It's your typical Army selection. A lot of rucking. I would say total, if you don't get lost, you're probably looking at 200 miles. You're walking total for the 3 weeks. But I mean, it's the typical, your 12-mile road march, your PT test, your Ranger PT test, not Army PT test. Some psychological testing and IQ tests and stuff like that. And then you have, a practice week where, you learn how to land nav. Because I'm pretty sure CAG does it the same way. They're going under the assumption that nobody knows how to land nav.
Right.
So they want to make sure everyone's on the same playing field. And they teach you. It's like 2 or 3 days of land nav classes. And they teach you land nav, and you go out and do some cadre led. And there's another road march in there that's disguised as another training event. But it's a timed event. And then then you move on to stress phase, and you're doing land nav every day and sleeping out in the woods with the culmination event that I won't spoil.
And after on the second time around getting selected, and then you had to go to RASP. So that's an interesting thing too. You had to go to 2 selection courses essentially to get picked up for the regiment.
Yeah, so the RRD selection, or RRC selection was for the company. Mm-hmm. And then RASP is for the regiment. Mm-hmm. And RASP sucked. Even though it was RASP 2, it sucked, man. It was not fun.
What can you tell us about it? Because it wasn't a gentleman's course at all.
I mean, it was. There's no yelling and screaming or
Yeah.
anything, but it's physically and mentally draining at the time when I went through. I don't know what it's like now.
Yeah.
But a lot of class learning about the regiment and the history of the regiment and how the regiment operates, because you're a non-commissioned officer or officer. Officers
Right.
go to it too.
You're an import.
So you're learning how the regiment operates. And then, again, you're going out and doing land nav. The land nav piece is interesting because they pair you up with RASP 1 guys, so RIP guys. They pair you up with one of them or 2 of them, and it's your job as an NCO to teach them how to land nav.
Oh,
so you're doing
interesting.
land nav with RASP 1 guys.
Yeah.
So if they suck, I was just like, God, it's a nightmare. but I was good, and we got all our points, and I was like, all right, guys, sit down. Sit down, eat a Murray. Let's hang out. There's a couple other physical events. Yeah, it was FTX. You do an FTX as a class, and there's some stressful events during that, and you really kind of see who can handle being an NCO
Right.
in the regiment or an officer under a stressful situation, Yeah.
Yeah, because it's RASP 2. It
Yeah.
used to be rope, which was different than RIP because, so for people who don't know, the way regiment works is you're a private, 18 years old or 27, however old you are when you go in, and you go to your infantry basic, you go to the Ranger indoctrination program, or now it is Rope 1, right? Ranger orientation program.
Ranger assessment and selection program.
Rangers, okay. And then you go to Ranger Battalion and you grow up in Ranger Battalion. You go through private and, to specialists and whatnot in Ranger Battalion. But they also have opportunities for people who did not grow up in battalion to come into battalion.
Well, the interesting thing is the regiment's really strict about making guys go back through selection to get back into the regiment. So even if you were an enlisted ranger, you go green to gold, become an officer, and now you go do your PL time in the 82nd, wherever you're at, and now you want to come back to the Ranger Regiment and take a Ranger platoon, you got to go back through RASP.
Yeah, so that's a thing.
They don't mess around.
So that's a thing now, too, with NCOs. It started probably 2014, 2015. Abrams Charter which is why officers went out and came back, went out and came back. Now NCOs also have to go out and come
Oh,
back.
do they really?
They're bringing that back.
Yeah, so every time you go from like platoon sergeant to first sergeant or first sergeant to ops or whatever, you're taking the next leadership position as an NCO. You got to go out for a year and come back.
Oh, you have to go out to the big army.
So
Well, they say big army.
Again,
going
some-
sitting on a desk at SOCOM is still
Abrams
counts.
charter was, when they stood up the Ranger Regiment in the 80s, in the 70s. It was supposed to be like a role model for the rest of the post-Vietnam Army.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so the idea, I'm not trying to lecture you, Dustin. I'm trying to just tell folks out there who maybe don't know what we're talking about that the idea was that you would grow this nucleus of highly skilled, trained soldiers, and then they would go out into the larger army and spread that knowledge and those skills around.
And that's why they brought back NCOs going out, was to do that.
Right.
Two problems, though, is some guys were going out to the big army and be like, oh, it's not that bad anymore.
Right. I can kick it.
I can just sit back and chill.
I'm kind of a legend here.
Exactly.
Yeah,
what happened.
I'm kind of a legend, and it's easy street.
Yeah. Guys would go out and not come back. They're like,
Yeah.
I'm a big fish in a little pond.
Yeah.
Instead of a little fish
Even
in a
if
big pond.
they're chilling down at McDill in Tampa, they're like, beach is pretty nice.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the other problem was regiment realized that guys weren't coming back by choice, and numbers started kind of getting depleted. So instead of sending guys out to the regular army to spread the knowledge, guys would go to SOCOM or JSOC or USASOC and do an ops job for a year instead of doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, you're going to
Right.
make them miserable on staff. They'll come right back.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's what happened with that. I love regiment death. I will always love regiment. It's the best time of my life. But regiment is a snake eating its own tail.
Yeah.
Like, just, it keeps moving and keeps getting rid of good guys, keeps moving, keeps getting rid of good guys. Because you have a guy that gave his whole life to the regiment from private to, E6, E7. He steps on his dick one time.
Yeah.
It's a minor thing.
Yeah.
And then gone.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, what?
I was actually going to bring that up because you mentioned that when you were at like the Lurch unit, that you had, I think a Lurch unit or Recce, but you would have guys who would RFS. Now in Ranger Battalion in the regiment, RFS is released for standards, and what that means is you did something, and it may have been something heinous, but generally something heinous will get you kicked out of the military.
Subjective.
Yeah. But generally it's something that you might get RFS for getting
It could be you got into a bar fight.
a bar
downtown.
fight
Yeah.
and you had a drink, even if the fight wasn't your fault, it was an alcohol related incident. And it really depends on what your chain of command feels about you and feels about
can
covering
be.
their ass at that point in time, whether or not you get released for standards. And so when you get released for standards, it's not, you don't get kicked out of the military. You're just like, you can't be a ranger anymore. You got to go down the road. And second, or like in Fort Lewis, down the road is
Lurs.
Lurs.
Or was Lurs.
Or hopefully it's Lurs, because they could be condemned to like
Korea.
a fate worse.
Korea is always the threat.
Exactly.
We're sending
exactly.
I mean, like another example of the whole go to RASP thing, one of my guys I worked with at the Lurs unit that got RFS, he spent 12 years at 275.
Yeah.
And then he had to go to RASP again because he made E7. He's going to take a platoon sergeant job. And in the board, they said no. And their reason was he's not aggressive enough. His mentality wasn't aggressive enough to be in regiment. I was like, what? Because he's like us. Like, he's just laid back, man.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to be a chest-beating gorilla all the time.
Right.
Well, when you say it's a snake eating its tail, it's exactly what you're alluding to there, is that you recruit and select and breed a generation of soldiers that are really tightly wound and really intense. And then it's like you cut them loose on a 3-day weekend. It's like, no shit, they got a DUI. No,
Yeah.
You stress these guys the hell out.
They got in a bar fight in Seattle.
I'm shocked.
Go figure.
I am shocked. How did that happen?
Yeah.
The thing with being a regiment, too, is there's only so many positions available.
Right.
Someone's always trying to get your job.
Right.
But no matter what position you're in, someone's waiting for you to mess up, or for you to leave. So it's almost like you're always kind of walking on eggshells all the time too. Like it's a stressful place to work.
Yeah.
Honestly, especially when I was there, the position I had, we haven't got there yet, but I was the youngest platoon sergeant in the most senior platoon sergeant position, and it was just every day I felt like I was going to just mess up and get sent home.
Yeah.
Let's walk towards that. You make it through RASP, and then the next step is there's the RRC has its own sort of like operator training course, right?
Yeah, they call it RTC, the Reconnaissance Training Course. Roughly 10 months long. I think it's 10 months long. Started that in January of 13. It's broke up into 3 phases. Phase 1 ended in May. I'm not going to get into what the training is for their training course, but RSLIC on steroids and a bunch of shooting programs and then free fall school and all that stuff. But yeah, I made it through phase 1 and then phase 1 board. I got the thanks but no thanks. Not really. They don't give you a reason why. They don't tell you why. It's just, hey, you're not a good fit. I think I know why. But yeah, so I left there. Went to the 3 shop at RSTB, and I was the air NCO for a couple weeks. And then the sergeant major came over and was like, hey, I think I got a job for you. Are you interested? I was like, yeah, what do you got? And he said 375 Recce. And that's where I went.
And so what rank are you right now?
I'm master sergeant, or retired master sergeant.
No, not right now, but at
E6.
this point in time.
Yeah, E6.
E6?
Yeah.
And what year is this?
13.
Okay. So things are still hot, or relatively hot. Like things are still happening. And you get offered this job for Recce.
Yep.
You're an E6. Is that a TL in Recce?
Yeah,
What
it's
is
a
it?
TL job.
Okay.
Yeah. I showed up to 375 Recce. The platoon sergeant at the time, my buddy Matt, he's a prior RRC guy too, except he got out of the Army, went National Guard, realized the real world sucks, came back in the Army, and was at 375 Recce now. But I showed up, he kind of knew my background, did an interview with me, got to know me, and then was like, hey man, I need your help. Like, I need your help shaping this platoon and what it should be into a Recce platoon, not, I call it a senior squad leader hangout platoon. A lot of guys did their squad leader time, and their reward was to go to Recce and go do the Omega thing and stuff like that.
Go have a beard.
Yeah, go grow a beard.
Yeah. How old was Recce at this point in time in regiment?
I mean, you were there when they stood up. Was it 03?
Yeah, the battalion Recce was 2004.
2004.
Yeah, so I was a sniper, but I was on the first deployment with the battalion Recce guys. Yeah.
So just about 10 years old.
Okay.
But the guy I was talking about, Matt, when he was in the National Guard, he was in a LURS unit.
Yeah.
So he went from RC to National Guard LURS and then came back to 375 Recce. So he knew what LURS is and what Recce is and had a very good understanding of what it should be. And me and him kind of molded this platoon into what it should be. And I'd say about 3 to 6 months later, I was just bebopping down the hallway going to my office. And he stopped me and he was like, hey man, did First Sergeant talk to you yet? I was like, no, why? He's like, well, him and Sergeant Major talked and he needs to talk to you. I was like, fuck. Like, I just got here, man. Like, what's going on now? So I go to First Sergeant's office and I walked in. He's like, hey, what do you think about being a platoon sergeant? You want to take over Recce? I was like, oh shit. Yeah, absolutely. Like, not going to turn it down, you know. And that's when I became the platoon sergeant for 375 Recce, and I was platoon sergeant for three and a half years.
So Recce wasn't new. It was 10 years old. But you guys sort of created this thing. Is it because at that time or during that time, there wasn't that LURS experience, that nobody knew what Recce should actually look like?
I think that's exactly what the problem was.
Okay.
They didn't have a good Recce background, as you said, and there just wasn't there wasn't a mission for them.
Yeah.
You know, overseas, it was the strike forces going out and hitting targets. Like, what's Recce gonna do?
Right.
You know, you got the Preds.
Right.
You got every ISR asset you can think of for all a task force over your target. Why do you need Recce out there? That was the mentality. They didn't have a mission.
When I mean, this is like ancient history, you know, taking baby steps, but that first deployment, I remember the guys doing some CTRs, doing some, you know, on foot kind of reconnaissance stuff. And then when we did get some strike operations, I remember the guys going out and like doing like, because actually we started doing FID too with a SWAT team out in Koust, and so taking those guys out and doing like BPs and you know, black side security, and so that was but it was all very like a nascent sort of form, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like if you're doing CTR, so CTR is close target reconnaissance, and in that environment, if you're doing CTR, you're either like in a vehicle or you're tasking Indige to do it. Like it's very hard sometimes to do it.
And that was RC's mission, was the CTRs.
Yeah.
Of like an airfield.
Yeah.
You know, they would drive by in vehicles and film or do whatever. Like
Yeah.
Recce wouldn't do that.
But now we're at the point where RRC is out doing secret squirrel stuff, and so you're saying that when you got there, sort of the battalion Recce teams were sort of in limbo, that not quite sure.
They were in limbo. We had the interagency mission program, and then also had guys tasked to RC to help them with their program.
Okay,
as well.
cool.
So they were filling billets for RC as well.
Okay.
And that was a funny story too. When I left RC, went over 375. When I showed with 375, I mean, like the next day, he's like, "Hey, you need to go over RC to talk to them about this deployment coming up." And I was like, "What the fuck?" So go back over there, knock on the door, and the guy that was on my board, Terry, he answered the door and he's like, "What's up, man?" I was like, I was told to come over here. I guess I'm working with you now. And he's like, huh. He's like, that worked out, didn't it?
Yeah.
I was like, guess so.
Yeah. So was there a formal, and Jack, you can answer this too, was there a formal, because like in the sniper section, you went to SODIC, right? You know, at least SODIC 2, if not SODIC 1, but you'd go to SODIC, the Special Operations Target Interdiction course. For Recce, when they stood them up, was there a formal training program for them?
I don't know when they stood
Well,
up.
back when they stood up, it was like, again, they were all, you know, building an airplane in flight, but they did have a training program that they were standing up. Yeah.
But it was an in-house training program?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I can't remember if they went to RSLIC or not. Man, I would have to hit up some of those guys from back in the day and talk to them. But I mean, what was it like when you got there?
When I got there, when I was a platoon sergeant, I didn't send anybody to RSLIC because I could teach RSLIC.
Yeah.
And that's what I did with my guys.
Yeah.
Taught the squad leaders or the team leaders how to do it, and then they taught their guys how to do it, the way the Army should work. In my mind at the time, all RSLIC would do for me is, yeah, cool, gave them an identifier,
Right.
but I just lost that guy for 3 to 4 weeks.
Right.
You know, so I would rather, instead of top-down training, I would go bottom-up. Like, you know, go to my team leaders. What does your team need to learn? What do you guys need? You know, you have the manuals. What do you not know in the manual? And then we would go over it. And
Now, was RSLIC taught like a TRADOC school, or was it taught like a soft school?
TRADOC school.
TRADOC school, okay.
It was a TRADOC school. And again, that's another reason, like, we don't want to go do that. Man.
Right.
Not saying we're better than that, but
you are, and
But you are.
And so when we talk about TRADOC and soft, we're talking about training and indoctrination.
Training and Doctrine Command.
Indoctrination. Yeah, doctrine.
Which is all the schools, all the Army
training
schools
and
are
doctrine.
under that.
So so it's very formalized process. It's been put together by an officer who may or may not know what they're doing, and like it's very formalized training that teaches to standard, not to, or whatever it is. Like, but they don't necessarily always teach things the way they need to be taught. So you're sending somebody to a school that is an Army taught school, which means it's a bureaucrat taught school.
exactly.
And not saying that the RSLIC instructors aren't great at their job or anything like that, but the curriculum itself has been laid out by the bureaucracy.
And
Yeah, that's true.
it's been laid out by the bureaucracy, and 75% of the stuff they're teaching is from Vietnam.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's still applicable, you know. But I would rather teach my guys what I know and what has worked.
Right.
And what does work.
Right.
Versus what TRADOC is telling me to teach them.
So when you guys turn this, or when you sort of, you know, develop this Recce element, this Recce section, how do you impress upon the command what your new improved capabilities are, or get sort of operational okays?
So that was, well, you have a couple different avenues. You got your TFTs, your task force trainer missions, and you got MLAT, multilateral training missions. TFT is just kind of a smaller MLAT per se, minus the airfield. We're not seizing an airfield during TFT. But the real big kind of kicker for us, we went to NTC. And it was like the first time regiment's gone to NTC in who knows how long. And we were supporting a big Army unit that was going through their rotation as a soft capability enabler. So we were separated from them, but we knew what their mission was. We had, I think our BC and a small staff was in their JOC with them. And then they tasked us. I think we had 1 or 2 line platoons there, and then Recce platoon. And the BC called us in, or called me in, and he was like, "Dustin, check it out." He's like, "I don't care what we have to do. We're here to win." He's like, "So, do what you got to do to win." I was like, "Roger that, sir." But we did our thing. We went and got on our 4-wheelers and our M-Razors and drove out. Climbed up a mountain, the biggest mountain we could find. I think it's Tiefert Mountain in NTC. I don't know why I remember that name, but probably because it was big. We climbed up there, and we climbed up there knowing Op 4 is not coming up there. Like, no one's climbing this mountain to come find us. Like, it's a pain in the ass. It took us, you know, all night to get up there and set up our hide site, and we're observing the battlefield. And the battlefield we could see, the battle space we could see, was the staging area for the Op 4 before they moved into the engagement area with the rotational unit. To start off, before the war, the simulated war even kicked off, we could see something way off in the distance. And me and my JTAC are sitting up there, and I'm like looking through a spotting scope and looking at a map and just looking. We probably spent 30 minutes to an hour just kind of, you know, just guesstimating where it was at. And finally, we just fat fingered on a map. Was like, whatever that is right here, and it's not friendly because the friendly is over there. And you can tell it's a big development. And so we called up a simulated HIMARS strike, and it ended up being the enemy brigade, like their talk, their staging area, and did the simulated HIMARS strike, wiped out their brigade talk. Task force launched a strike force in Ospreys to go clear through, and I remember the NTC general, whatever general's in charge of NTC, came storming in the talk and was like, no, like, they're still alive. Send them back. Like, brought the strike force back. Like, they didn't even get to land and clear.
It's sort of like when you're playing
I was like,
war when you're a kid and saying, "No, I shot you."
Do-overs.
Yeah.
I was like, we just won, like,
Yeah.
hour 12 of this war. Like, what's the problem? Anyway, so they came back alive, whatever. And then they were staging in that little corridor I was talking about, and they just had all their armor, Abrams, Paladins, Bradleys, everything just in a line. And we took pictures of it all and sent it up via HPW, SAT, to the talk with reports and everything, intel reports. And then they struck that. Alive again. So, anyways, I say all that to say we exfilled, got back to our talk, and as soon as I walked in my office, the phone rings, and it's the BC who's at the rotational units talk. And he's like, "Ward," he's like, "that was awesome." He's like, "This unit is eating up everything you're giving us. Can you go back out in 24 hours? I was like, "Oh my God." That's what you get for being good.
Yeah, yeah.
We just spent 4 days out there, like, freezing our butts off. So yeah, we went back out, 24 hours later to the other side of that corridor I was talking about and did some more stuff back there. And I think that was a real proving point for us.
Yeah.
Because they saw what we were capable of doing.
Yeah.
On top of that, when he said, I'm here to win, do what you got to do for us to win.
Mm-hmm.
I sent my guys to go do a, low vis AFO type operation.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, go put your civilian clothes on, take one of our beacons, go into the enemy motor pool, and tag their AAA pieces, which they did.
That's awesome.
So I was like, give me a plan. Don't just go out there and wing it.
Right.
So they gave me a plan, and they went out there and tagged their AAA pieces, their anti-air. And we just tracked them all through the box at NTC. And as soon as they stopped, we struck those.
The E4 Mafia strikes again.
So we eliminated their anti-air like right off the rip, and it was pretty awesome. What was even better is when the war was over, and the Op 4s back in their motor pool, downgrading or whatever they're doing, and sent my guys back over to recover the beacons.
Right.
And they didn't put on civvies; they just walked in and was like, "Hey, there's something on that vehicle I need to get." And the guy's like, "Who are you? Like, what? What are you getting?" He's like, "Don't worry about it." Just like pull this Pelican box off the under from.
I mean, when you guys did the AAR for NTC, I mean, they must have been fairly pissed over all of this.
I didn't sit in on it, but I'm sure it was.
Yeah. So to catch people up, so NTC and it's JRTC, right?
In Louisiana.
Yeah. So they're basically war games, and I never went to either of them, but they're basically war games. And the Op 4, the people who are actually stationed on those bases, are good. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're great combatants. I don't know, but they're good at wargaming. Mm-hmm. It's like a SWAT team going up against professional paintballers.
I mean, those guys are probably the most well-trained unit in the Army, realistically, because they're doing it all the time.
All the time, right? And they know the terrain, they know everything else like that. So, like I said, I don't know about combatants because I don't know, but they're good at what they do there. And it's very hard to beat those units in these war games. Yeah. So, and you guys basically beat them three times at least.
They weren't used to fighting a special operations unit.
Right.
Because we had ISR, which big Army units typically don't have all the time.
Right.
We had HIMARS, we had CAS, we had everything, and we just sat there and called it in all day. And I remember watching, there was one unit that was close enough to us when I called in a strike on him. I remember watching him through just binos, like look up in the sky and like throw his hands up.
Yeah.
And like a guy come over and give him a casualty card, like you're dead. And they packed up and drove off. And I was like, yeah.
So, meanwhile, back at battalion, your platoon's getting deployed now.
Mm-hmm.
So, walk us through some of that. Like, what's going on in the war at this point?
In 2013 or 2014? 2013.
You tell me. Start where you want to start.
2013, I did not deploy as a platoon sergeant. I was a jock NCO, and then I went out to Coast to do the interagency thing for a little bit. 2014, the strike force was still going out. I don't remember how many platoons we had over there or companies. Wasn't really involved in that. The Recce platoon was tasked with an interagency mission, and we supported that by sending, 5 guys to, 5 different locations. Mm-hmm. So as a platoon sergeant, like not only did I have a platoon to manage, but now I had to manage, 4 to 5 different teams,
right?
4 to 5 different outstations, and what those outstations were doing. Granted, those guys that I sent out there, they were their own team leader out there, which is cool. I was very hands off as a leader. Like, only hit me up if you need something, bro. Like, I'm not going to micromanage you. You're a big boy. Do your thing.
Right.
But the Recce platoon did the interagency mission for that deployment, or every deployment I did. And, we were going out every night, just about, hitting targets.
Could you describe that mission as far as you're able to, like what it entailed, what you guys were tasked with?
Yeah, with the interagency mission, again, I say interagency, it's a conglomerate of agencies, right? You got any 3-letter acronym you can think of, or 3-letter agency you can think of that we're working with. It's just It is a task force. And as the not big army, but as the Army representative of that task force, our team was responsible for being enablers to provide capabilities to those civilian agencies, because civilian agencies don't have Apaches, they don't have F-16s, they don't have ISR as much as we do. They have ISR, but not as much as we do. And we provide further intel support, more targeting abilities. You always want as many tools in a tool bag as you can have, and that's what we did. And the team leaders, including myself at each outstation, we're the eyes and ears and voice of the task force commander for that interagency commander.
So, like, if you're going out with, for instance, maybe like the FBI is there because there's a poppy field they want to investigate. They can't talk to the military. They don't have air support. They don't have whatever.
Yeah, I'll just say I talked to somebody who is part of a other governmental agency, and he was describing to me how when they tried to call, the only thing they really could call, he said, was ECAS, or like emergency close air support, which takes, who knows how long that's going to take. But when you have Rangers out there on target with you, close air support, medevac, all this sort of like good Army stuff, support stuff that comes along with you guys is suddenly available and drastically shortens the amount of time that all of these things take.
Yeah, because our teams that we had at each outstation was comprised of the team leader, an assistant team leader, and then you had a JTAC, a medic, an RTO, and an EOD guy. So you have pretty much every capability you can think of in one team. Not everyone's 11 Bravo, not everyone's a trigger puller, but everyone's either a Ranger or better, and can really bring some hurt to the battlefield when needed.
And now we're also getting into another sort of like interesting role change in that, there's a Recce component, but also like you guys are going out on like strike operations, right?
Yeah, we were going out more than the strike force.
Right.
I honestly, I felt bad for the strike force and the line companies that would deploy for regiment because you had squad leaders and platoon sergeants that grew up through the early 2000s. I mean, getting after it,
right,
with Team Merrill, Team Darby, and all these things. And then you get to the mid 2010s, and it slows down drastically.
Right.
And like Taliban wasn't allowed to be targeted because we're in peace talks with them.
Right.
Right.
But the interagency task force was allowed to target him. So we were going out after him because we were part of that task force. But the strike force, 5 to 10 times the entire deployment they're going out.
And that's got to be a frustrating thing, especially for a young Ranger.
Oh my God!
Who came in to get at it.
I mean,
they did do, and like we were referencing like Les's when Les was talking about doing the Nangarhar clearing operation, and I've talked to other folks where like the Ranger Regiment sounds like they were involved in some like a couple really substantial large scale combat operations in Afghanistan.
Yeah, that Nangarhar clearance operation happened multiple times. The first time was in 2016, towards the tail end of our deployment. We actually extended for like 30 days for that operation to happen, and it sucked for us. I was at JBAD during that time. And it sucked for us because task force was saturating that Nangarhar Valley, and JBAD's right there in Nangarhar, if not next to Nangarhar. They're saturating that valley with fires. There's a HIMARS strike, 2 to 3 times a day, every day, and then just ISR. And so they took all of my assets as the interagency team leader. I'm like, man, I can't do anything. Give me my assets back. But they flexed over. Man, I think we pushed over the rest of the battalion. So almost all of 375 was there for the operation Les was talking about. And before that operation kicked off, the sergeant major and some other first sergeants came down to JBAD to kind of do a PDSS, because that's where the warm base was that they were going to launch out of. And asked my opinion. He's like, hey, Ward, you know, what do you think about this? And I looked at him. I was like, I think you're gonna die, man. And he was like, what? I was like, it is hot. It's the middle of July, and you're gonna send an entire Ranger battalion, quote unquote, online
Right.
through event. Like, we are not built for that.
Right.
We are a direct action.
Right. Yeah,
Hit a target and leave.
Yeah.
Not get online and walk
Right.
for a valley, you know. And lo and behold, guess what happened? You know, guys had.
Right.
I mean, there's multiple heat cats.
Yeah.
I think one dude had kidney failure because his heat cat was so bad,
Oh my gosh.
and it was just terrible. Personal, professional opinion. They can chalk it up as a success because we killed some ISIS guys, but like in the grand scheme of things, it was a failure. Like, it was just an utter failure. The fact that we had to do it, you know, version 1, version 2, version 3, version 4,
Right.
Should be an
it should just be version 1, you know.
And if you
it's
guys
just-
go back and watch the episode with Les Sandusky, you'll hear the sort of like boots on the ground
Yeah.
account of it.
We tried to get boots on the ground from where I was at as the interagency task force that we had there at JBAD, because we could provide with our task force, you know, all the stuff that we talked about earlier, providing as far as fires and medevac.
Got it.
But with the indigenous personnel that we had, we would be able to provide, you know, 100 trucks and dishkas and RPGs and mortars, just anything under the sun you can think of, and we could just drive there. It was right down the road, instead of flying guys in and not be able to leave unless the birds came back. That was the big problem. But we got shut down. We couldn't go because of the interagency hire said no. So
Can you talk a little bit about the indigenous force that you worked with?
I will say it is a conglomerate of Afghans from the entire country. And it's really awesome to watch them work together. That was one of the coolest things I've seen in country, because there's a lot of infighting. You know, there's tribes and
Sure.
Pashtun
Right.
and Dari and
Right.
Uzbeks and Tajiks, and just everybody hates everybody. But those guys that I worked with genuinely wanted Afghanistan to be better.
Mm-hmm.
And they genuinely liked each other, and they worked together, and sounds bad to say, but they hated the typical Afghan almost more than we did. Like, they would put boots to the head and mess these guys up, you know, the Taliban and ISIS and everybody, and they would rough them up good and make it a point like, hey, quit fucking our country up, man.
Yeah.
You told me, you know, as sort of a point of reference, that it reminded you of like the American military in the
Exactly.
sense that it's like some dude from North Dakota and some cat from New York working together, and
That's exactly what it was like.
Yeah.
And so they worked so well together. They were paid very good. I'll say a Afghan in that unit, a private in that unit, made about $900 a month.
good money.
In Afghanistan, yeah.
Yeah.
If you compare that to Afghan National Army general, he got $900 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So we paid them very well. We treated them very well. They had good food, they had air conditioning, good barracks, and worked on the referral program.
Mm-hmm.
So I vouch for you, you vouch for me. I'm like, hey, Jack's a good guy. He should come work here. But if you mess up, I'm gone too.
Yeah.
And that's how you keep them loyal, along with the money.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you know, some of those guys didn't make it out. A lot of them did, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Don't know where they're at. They might be sitting in some other country right now waiting to get their visas or whatever. But a lot of them made it out, some didn't, and it's terrible.
What was there a minimum rank to go to Recce at the time?
I tried to put E5 on it.
E5.
Yeah.
So they
I
at
think we
least had to be tabbed.
Yeah.
They had to have
you
time
had
in.
you had to be tabbed. Yeah.
So is that why I was trying to figure out why Recce got this essential essentially LNO job, basically, right? Or this liaison job. Was it because of the overall maturity of the Recce elements?
I think it was the maturity and mentality. Because those interagency jobs, you got to have the right personality and the right person in those positions. If you know anything about Ranger Regiment, you know, you're from private on up, you know, it's
Ranger.
yeah, just Ranger. I'm trying to think of the words without like offending somebody, but
Ranger
it's
smash.
just chest beating,
Yeah.
you know, fire breathing team leader.
Right.
You know, you don't want that in those positions. You need somebody that is kind of mellow, can read the room, speak intelligently, and know when to talk and when to listen. Not embarrass the regiment or the army,
Right.
you know, because you never know when you're working with a bunch of civilians. You never know who's who.
Right.
So, I think that's why we got that job.
And what works great as a TL or a squad leader, whatever, on the line, like lighting a fire under people's asses, like getting them, especially when you're dealing with 18-year-olds fresh off the street. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's great for that job.
They need it. Yeah.
Right. But sometimes it takes a different sensibility to work in these other positions.
Yeah. And then when I was a platoon sergeant, like I pride myself when I was a platoon sergeant to not have a single incident. Not a single incident, alcohol related or other. And I think a big part of that was treating them like men.
Yeah.
And then also, I don't think I yelled one time.
Yeah.
I don't think I smoked anybody one time. I did more of the disappointed dad leadership.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, you treat a boy like a man, and they man up, right?
Yeah.
Well, also I think one of the keys to avoiding alcohol-related incidents is like a tight team and a hasty exfil. like
Combat park.
yeah,
Get out quick.
pre-prior planning, right?
I mean, it was like 2 weeks after I left, there was a DUI. 2 weeks after, and they're like, "Why did you leave us?" I'm
Yeah.
like, it's not my choice. I'm sorry.
So as you're going on these deployments, I mean, it's really cool to hear about this, because I think that the cliche about Rangers, even to this day with some folks, is that Rangers are like a blocking force for, Delta Force operations, and it's like, well,
far from the truth.
Yeah, the boys have gone off and done all sorts of interesting, unique things, be it direct action or otherwise.
Yeah, that was the Arkansas National Guard. Like the Rangers became
So,
their own thing.
As you were going off on these sorts of unique missions, I mean, are there any of them that kind of like stand out in your mind that you'd like to talk about?
I would say one of the most impressive ones we did was kind of proof of concept, a national strike proof of concept. For that deployment, I was stationed just outside Kabul, and we wanted to prove that we could go as far as we can go, MEZ, which is northern Afghanistan. So we came up with a plan, found a target that was still active up there, and we sent some guys in civilian vehicles. They drove all the way up there, Afghans, our indigenous force. And then we flew some guys commercial air up there, undercover, And then the rest of us took a private jet, which I thought was ridiculous.
Super baller.
I was like, are we really in a private jet right now? And the pilot was like, it's a 93 model. I was like, it's still a private jet, dude. Like, are you kidding me right now?
You guys are, I mean, that's about as baller as it gets, man. You're like,
For like four of us, yeah.
Ranger Hunter Killer team.
It's like
cruising around in a private jet.
Yeah,
That's
it's
a
like
movie script.
It's like riding in a 2005 limousine. It's like, I don't care. It's 2005.
Still a limo, man.
Yeah.
You got a booze cart, And then we sent, it's like a civilian C-130. It's called an L-100. So we loaded up we call them Scooby vans. It looks like a mystery machine. Scooby-Doo. Loaded those on there and flew those up there. And we all linked up there. Me and one of my interagency partners, we walked up to the gate guard. There's a big army, like probably a National Guard guy or something. And here I am, or here we are, looking like this. And I was like, hey, man, in like 15 minutes, you're going to have, about 20 Afghans show up in civilian vehicles with weapons. I was like, you can't stop them. Don't search them. They're with us. Just let them through. They're coming over here. And he just like, yes, sir. I was like, thank you. That was easier than I thought it was going to be. I was going to have to go talk to somebody else. But we all link up and get our vans, vehicles, guns, everything together. And we go out and hit this target out in Mez that, no one's operated a Mez in probably 5 years-ish. So he had no idea we were there. We show up and, bang down his door and scoop him up. And he just looked at us like, what? Who the hell are you? Like, where'd you guys come from? I haven't been bad. Like, I stopped being bad, And detain him, take him back to the hangar, and kind of felt bad for the guy because he honestly hadn't done anything bad in a couple of years. And I don't know what he did before that. He was still a target, so whatever. And but he sat in the corner of that hangar, earmuffed, blindfolded, and handcuffed for probably about 12 hours. Like, it was I felt bad. I was like, man, this guy has no idea what's going on right now. And then we load him up on the L-100, a 45-minute flight back to Kabul. And he's peeing himself and pooping himself and throwing up the entire time because he has no idea where he's going. Probably first time he's ever been on a plane ever. Land in Kabul, take him off that. We get on an Mi-17 helicopter, fly to our base. Again, he has no idea what's going on, where he's going. He's just lost in the sauce. And then take him back there and debrief him, and I think they just put him on a commercial air and flew him back.
Just gave him a few $100.
Yeah, it's like, hey, thanks for the proof of concept.
Sorry,
like,
bro.
Yeah. But it was pretty cool to be a part of that.
It shows, I think we were talking a little bit before we started the show. It kind of shows like what could have been. And, like in full disclosure, I was like definitely in favor of us pulling out of Afghanistan. But on the flip side to it, what you guys were doing shows, I think, that there could have been a very light footprint American presence in Afghanistan, absolutely, maintaining that sort of residual counterterrorism force, large or really almost entirely working through Afghan partners. And that operation shows, it could have been a national asset, not just regional.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Another mission that comes to mind was, my JTAC. He got shot up one night. He got shot 4 times, and we were going after this SVES facility. So we hit the suspected SVES facility, and there's like a legit family in there. And he's like, not us. You might want to talk to the guys across the street, though.
Yeah. So
we go across the street, and as we were maneuvering, they squirted out the back and took off running. We had Apaches overhead already. We collapsed them in overhead, so they had eyes on. We were kind of chasing after these guys, and in the farm fields in Afghanistan, you have a field, and then there's like an irrigation ditch that runs through them, or it's raised for a walkway. So either one, it's either sunken down or raised up. And we were getting ready to come up to a cross section or intersection where these irrigation ditches and walkways crossed. And my JTAC was standing up on the raised section, and he's talking to the birds, and he's like, hey, do you have eyes on hotspot? They're like, yeah, it's about 25 meters in front of you. And as soon as he said that, they just started ripping rounds at us. And he was the first person they could hear and see, because it was probably a full moon for all I know. But he was lit up. You could see him plain as day, standing on this berm. And he took in the thigh, the abdomen, the ribs, and his helmet. And he didn't have his chin strap buckled, which I think saved his life, honestly, because that round was sticking through the inside of his helmet. So if it was tight, it would have had something to, some type of, what's the word I'm looking for? Some type of resistance.
Yeah,
would have pushed
it would have been stabilized.
Yeah. But his helmet was unbuckled, so it knocked it off. And I was about 50 meters to his left, a couple guys down from him.
So he got a full burst.
Yeah. I mean, straight up.
That's it, yeah.
And like I said, knocked his helmet off. He's yelling, I'm hit. And I'm shooting back and yelling at him to put a tourniquet on it. The rest of the team is shooting back. I'm yelling for the medic, shooting back. Yelling for the medic again because he's shooting, so he can't hear me. like, come over here, medic. Because he was probably about 25 meters to my left. So he's running across all this fire to get to him. Meanwhile, my JTAC had the wherewithal to scoop his helmet back up, put it on his head, key up to the birds, while he's bleeding out, and tell them that he's hit, take all commands from 2-1, who's me, the GFC. And I thought that was pretty cool that he had the he
wherewithal.
Was able, he was able to do that.
Yeah.
He could think through things. He wasn't freaking out. But as he's yelling, I'm hit. I'm yelling at him to put a tourniquet on him. As I'm like shooting, like I can't help you right now, man. I'm trying to kill these guys first. Started trading grenades back and forth. It was like playing hot potato with grenades.
Yeah.
I mean, legit. Like, a grenade landed from me to you, and the entire time you've grown up in the Army, when a grenade comes at you, what do you say?
Oh, you're supposed to jump away.
You say
down.
grenade. You yell
Yeah.
grenade.
Oh, right. So, yeah.
When you throw one, you say frag out.
Yeah.
When one comes in, you yell grenade. My buddy, I don't know if it was like the stress of the moment or something, but he was like, frag in. I was like, what? It blew up right there in front of us. I was like, oh my God. And we started throwing them back. I watched some guy just like limp wrist one, had to, kind of die from that. But we ended up, taking care of that problem. But those guys actually had like a defended, fortified sandbag position.
Yeah.
Like they ran to it waiting for us to come to them.
Yeah.
And it was a near ambush. We were within 25 meters. I mean, you could see them. It was close.
They had a fallback position.
Yeah. We ended up smoking them. Worked on the JTAC. He, remember him like laying on the stretcher and he like passed out. And I was like, oh shit, he just died. And he was like, my best friend. I was like, fuck. I kind of look at him, I look at the medic. I'm like, medic's not freaking out. I'm like, what the hell, man? And I kind of slap him in the face. I'm like, Trevor, come back to me, man. And he stayed passed out. And the medic was like, hey, dude, he's in that K-hole. Ketamine.
Yeah.
He's like, just let him go. he's in a good place right now.
He's happy.
I was like, all right, if you say so. But he would pop back up. He like woke up and like popped back up. And he's like, Dustin. I was like, what's up? Well, stop yelling, man. Like, what's up? And he's like, hey, man, make sure you eat big, lift big, get big. And he like passed back out. And I was like, seriously? And they woke back up again and called out to our RTO, Jeremy. He's like, Jeremy. He's like, yeah, what's up? And he's like, give me a dip. He's like, and I looked at him, I was like, you're not getting a dip right now, dude. Like, you're not getting a dip, sorry. He's like, all right. Pass back out. Doc Bowman at that time did a freaking phenomenal job saving that guy's life, man. I mean, from tourniquets to freeze-dried plasma. I don't know if anybody knows what freeze-dried plasma is. At the time, we were the only ones using it. It was kind of experimental. We're the guinea pigs. It's French. It comes in 2 glass bottles. One's powdered plasma, one's the solution to mix it. And you got to like suck it out of the syringe. It's vacuum sealed. And I was pulling on that syringe as hard as I could, trying to get as much solution as I could and shoot it into the powder mix in the other glass bottle. So Doc always had this, it was like a CLS bag with these 2 glass bottles. And you think carrying glass bottles on like a mission, like they're going to break, but they're like bubble wrapped and everything. But then you swirl, you can't shake it, you gotta swirl it. So I'm sitting there like swirling the solution, like
like you're mixing a drink.
Yeah, I'm like sitting here swirling the solution, like waiting, like, is it good yet? And he's like, yeah, give it to me. Gave him the freeze dried plasma, like I said, tourniquets, the dressings, freeze dried plasma, the fentanyl pop, ketamine, just everything was awesome. Doc did a phenomenal job.
So you guys did like I mean, I know there's a difference between blood and plasma, but essentially you kind of gave him like a blood transfusion.
Yes, so it's almost like
plasma transfusion.
It's like an infusion. So it can carry oxygen.
It's exactly
unlike
what plasma
an
does.
IV.
Exactly.
Fascinating. That's amazing.
Really, when you give somebody an IV, all you're doing is increasing their blood pressure.
Right.
So,
Right.
but the plasma actually carries the oxygen. And stuff.
Right.
So, Bird came in, which pissed me off because the LZ we were lasing, they said they couldn't land at. They said it was too small. They're like, hey, we got to push over some LZ you laser.
So this was a conventional bird then?
Yeah, it was just regular dust off.
Yeah.
And they landed like 2 fields over, which was the exact same size as the fields I freaking lays. But what pissed me off about it is like that field wasn't cleared.
Right.
Like, they could have landed on an IED or something.
Right.
You know. So they land, and we come walking over there to like try to clear a path as best as we could visually to bring the casualty over. Load him up. The doors are off. The Blackhawk, the pilot and co-pilot doors, the cockpit doors, they had off. And the pilot's sitting there, looking down at his screen, just waiting. And I kind of walked up and I slapped him on the shoulder, and it scared the shit out of him. He's like, "What the fuck?" I was like, "Hey." I was like, "Thank you." Like, shook his hand, and they took off. So got back to JBAD base, and he's alive today.
It's awesome, man.
That's amazing.
He's a really good dude, really good friend. It was exciting at the time because I said he was shot, and he said, "Take all commands from 2-1. I'm not a JTAC.
Yeah.
But when you call up the task force and you say Eagle's wounded, they're pushing everything they have to you."
Yeah.
Luckily, me and him had worked together for 3 years. He had been my personal JTAC for 3 years, and we had this bond, and we were always kind of cross-training. Like, he'd quiz me on things, and I'd just listen. Just listen to him talk to aircraft. You learn, what to do and how to talk to him. And once he gave me control of the assets, and task force pushed me every asset. So, like, I was in control of, like, 3 ISR birds, 2 Apaches, 2 F-16s, 2 A-10s, an AC-130. I just had all this stuff, and I was like, instead of stressing out,
Yeah.
like, I knew what to do.
Yeah.
It was cool. And
At that point, you're like,
I was
let's
thankful
go to
for
war.
him. I was thankful. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, I
like,
mean,
what are we blowing up today?
Yeah.
it fell on you then to like smoke check that position, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Smoke check it, and then the Apaches left with the dust off. I let them escort them back because they were pretty much bingo anyways.
Yeah.
But then just controlling all the sensors, like watching us on the way back, and if something happened on the way back, how to control them as well. And it was, it was like cool. It was just cool to be able to do, like, know how to do that from paying attention to him.
Yeah.
Because the first time me and him worked together and got into an engagement, I think I was an E6 at the time. I was an E6 at the time. We had some guys maneuvering on us, and he came over and he's like, "Hey, we got guys, coming up. Can I shoot?" I was like, "Yeah, man. Tell the Apaches. Tell them to shoot." And he walked away. He came back like a minute later. He's like, "Hey, are you sure?" I was like, "Yeah, dude. Like, as long as you don't hit any civilians or blow up any civilian buildings, like, I don't care. Shoot them." And he's like, "Okay, I just never had an E6 clear me hot before." I was like, "You have now."
Yeah.
And like, it was at that point, like, our synchronicity, whatever.
Right.
We just kind of mind melded.
Yeah.
And worked together very well after that, because he knew what my expectations were, and I knew he wasn't going to do anything stupid. And half the time we used fires, I was just like, you know what I want, man.
Yeah.
I just do it.
And those guys, and we've talked about on the show before, whether they're JTACs or CCTs or TACPs, or those guys were so good at their job.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the interesting thing. Tell them who this JTAC was, though.
He was an Army JTAC. He's a Ranger. He's a Fister, 13 Fox.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I to get to that level, like calling an artillery and calling in naval gunfire, I mean, it's one thing. Calling an air in an engagement like that, you've just got to be cool as a cucumber to be able to do that, and quick.
Awesome.
And they're just...
He was awesome, and I said he was an Army JTAC, which for people out there, far and few in between.
Yeah.
Like it's usually an Air Force job, but regiment has their own. He's a 13 Fox, so he's an artilleryman.
So he was a fister in the regiment. He wasn't an attached JTAC.
No, he's a fister in the regiment.
That's amazing.
But we don't have artillery assets.
Right.
So that's their job. They're
Right.
JTACs. Which kind of screws them, talking to him, throughout our time together, kind of screws them career-wise.
Right.
Because
They
they're
don't
going,
have artillery time.
Exactly.
Right.
They're going to like E78 boards.
Right.
And the sergeant major in charge of their boards is like, I don't give a shit about your JTAC stuff. Like, that has nothing to do with being an artilleryman.
Right.
Which is stupid because it's better than being an artilleryman, if you ask me. Like,
They're actually more like, they sound more like they're Anglico guys. More like the Marine Anglico. They're Naval Gunfire Liaison. Yeah. It's interesting because I had a similar experience early on in Afghanistan. Nobody got injured, fortunately, but it made me realize that there are no like squirters. There are only maneuver elements.
I like your style. Yeah. Yeah, his I was saying I showed him a picture earlier today. He took a round to the helmet, and it was a PK round. And if it wasn't for his helmet being unbuckled, it probably would punch all the way through. Because in the picture, it's sticking through his helmet. It scratched his head. There's a scratch.
Really?
Yeah. And what's crazy is the Ops Corps helmet is only rated to 9mm, and that's a PK round.
Yeah, it's a lightweight
7.62 by
yeah
54.
54 round.
Yeah,
Yeah.
762 by 54. Yeah.
And it punched through and stopped when it touched his head. But it was right here in his temple. Like it went through where the rail is on the helmet.
Yeah.
If anybody knows what I'm talking about. And if he would have been looking to the left, to the right, or up, he would have took it to the face.
It's amazing.
It
just
looked
how
it
lucky
looked
he
like
is.
either the bullet came at like maybe an upward angle, or the round keyholed through the helmet. I wasn't there. I have no idea which it was, but it was interesting the hole in the side of the helmet.
I think what happened was because obviously he got hit here first, second, third,
Yeah, it
fourth.
was a zip. Yeah.
I think it zipped up.
Yeah.
And as that one hit, he flinched,
Yeah.
or whatever, and just bam, hit him
Yeah.
right in the head. But
That makes sense.
it was just a fraction of a second that saved his life.
What did you said that the Afghanis that you worked with, that they got along? How were they in terms of combat?
I would say I trusted them with my life. I still do.
Mm-hmm.
I did. I had to trust them with my life because there's 5 of us and 5 interagency people, and then 100 Afghans or however many we had. And they're the ones that are hitting the targets. Their primary breach, their primary everything. We are technically advisors. And to kind of sit back a couple times, every now and then, and just watch them put a ladder on the wall, climb up the ladder, pull security, go over, open the gate from the inside, everybody flow in and secure everything. It was awesome. It was like watching us hit a target. They are well trained. They know what they're doing, and they need to be utilized still to this day. Like, we need to be utilizing those guys. They're very well trained. I'll caveat it with, if one of those Afghans has been carrying a ladder for 10 years, it doesn't matter if you're going to go hit a tent in the middle of the desert, he's still going to carry a ladder. Because if you take that ladder away, he doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
They were very good at what they were trained on, but if there was a complex problem or
Exactly,
something was out of the ordinary, that they might.
Yeah.
Something I would also like to point out is, as far as I'm aware, that program that you guys were working on, pretty large, a lot of Afghans throughout essentially 20 years of war. I'm not aware of any green on blue incidents.
0.
At all.
0.
Yeah. Which I think speaks a lot to the efficacy of the program, and whatever you guys were doing, it was working in that regard.
Yeah, there's 0 green on blue. We thought we might have had one, not an actual green on blue, like a developing green on blue. We were able to nip it in the bud, and fired both those guys and got them out of here because of the referral program.
Yeah.
So they were gone, but not a single green on blue incident. And even some of those outstations that we had shut down. Like the one in Asadabad shut down. However, those guys stayed there and operated on their own.
Oh, really?
Those Afghans stayed there and operated on their own with no American help. They finally did get some American help towards the end of 2016 through just some funding and weapons here and there. But they stayed there and policed their own community. And they would come down to JBAD like once a month and kind of give us a debriefing of what they've been doing. And they're still getting after it on their own.
Did they ever get to the point where they were able to have their own JTACs and like talk to Afghan helicopters? No,
not our guys.
Okay.
No. Hail to the no.
No, I mean even talking to Afghan Air Force.
I'm sure the KKA probably did, or regular Afghan army, but our guys weren't Afghan army, so they wouldn't talk to them anyways.
Gotcha. Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. So, as your 3 years as Recce platoon sergeant are winding down, what's sort of the next step for you?
Got finished as platoon sergeant, got moved to the 3 shop. You know, that glorious 3 shop. Spent about a year there as the AOPS NCO, and I was just miserable. The guys deployed again without me, and I even emailed Sergeant Major. I was like, "Hey, I'll go just as a trigger puller." I was like, "I won't be in charge of anything." And I was
I'll be
like,
a saw gunner.
Just let me go, man.
Yeah.
And he's like, "No, we need you back here." And I was like, "Oh, this sucks." Like, working an office job is my nightmare. Like, that is my nightmare. And I like working with my hands. I like being in the field. I like teaching. I like, being with the guys. And I was just miserable. My job performance was probably not great. Like, I tried to go to work as less as possible. Like, some days I wouldn't even show up. It was whatever. And it showed. I'm not ashamed to say it. And I finally got the invite to leave regiment. Like the ops sergeant major pulled me in. He's like, "Hey man, like, I think it might be time for you to find somewhere else to go."
Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I was like, "Am I being RFS'd?" He's like, No. He's like, "You're not being RFS'd. Don't take it that way." He's like, "You personally need to find somewhere else."
Yeah.
He's like, "You're miserable." And I was like, "All right." So I kind of went and hunted around, went to Ranger Training Brigade, where Ranger School is, and the sergeant major of the brigade was my previous sergeant major at battalion. Awesome guy. Vic is one of the best sergeant majors you could ever work for. And, just cold knocked his office. Actually, I knocked on his office. He wasn't there. I waited in the parking lot till he got there. Watched him walk in, and then I walked in behind him, and I was like, "Hey, what's up?" But I told him what was going on, and if he can give me a job. Because the retention guy at battalion was like, "Hey, man, you're either going to go to the SFAB, which, screw that, or go to Fort Polk, JRTC." And I was like, "I will go AWOL
Right.
before I go to JRTC."
Right.
I was like, "There's always another way." I was like, I refuse to let the Army tell me what I'm going to do. And so I went and talked to Vic, and he was like, "Hey, what do you want to do?" I was like, "I'll be a Ranger instructor, man. Like, I don't care. I'll be out in the woods." And he kind of looked at me, and he's like, "You don't want to do that." I was like, "What?" And he's like, "It sucks." He's like, "You're going to be out there, rain, shine, snow, heat, holidays, away from your family, 24 on, like 48 off. He's like, it's not fun." I was like, "All right, well, never mind then." Then he goes, "But we just took over Jumpmaster, Airborne, and Pathfinder.
Okay.
So that all falls under ARTB now."
Oh, really?
Airborne Ranger Training Brigade.
Oh, interesting.
And I was like, "Well, I'll do Jumpmaster or Pathfinder."
That's a nice badge. If you haven't had it before.
So I went to I already had Pathfinder.
You did. Well, can you
Yeah.
tell us about the Pathfinder school? Because it's a coveted school, and not a lot of people get an opportunity
Does
to
it
go.
still exist?
Nope, it's gone.
It's gone.
No longer coveted.
Well, now it's doubly coveted. You should go back in just to wear that badge. Right.
They still have them for the National Guard, but
It's like a glider badge. Not so many people with that.
I want the Army Space Badge, dude. Have you seen that thing?
They have that?
Yeah, it's like Space Ghost.
Holy shit.
Looks awesome. But yeah, so I went to be a
I have to
Pathfinder.
look that up now.
A Pathfinder instructor.
Okay.
That's where I went after regiment. Be a Pathfinder instructor. I was a drop zones instructor, So Pathfinder School teaches sling loads,
Okay.
HLZ operations, and drop zone operations. Teaches all three of those. You don't have to be airborne to go. You can get sling load certified from the sling load certification course. It's called SLIC. You can get air assault HLZ certified from air assault school, but Pathfinder is the only one that teaches all three in one shot. The only one that teaches drop zone operations. Basically, you're learning, and the history of Pathfinder School comes from World War II, when the Pathfinders went into Europe before the invasion and set up drop zones for the paratroopers from 82nd and 101st to jump in. And that's why everybody goes to Pathfinder schools, to learn drop zone operations. They're not going there for sling loads or HLZs because, like I said, you can go to other schools for those. You're going there to learn drop zones, and that's what we're known for. And you learn how to calculate width and length of drop zones and green light time of drop zones, how many jumpers and equipment you can put on a drop zone, what type of aircraft a drop zone can accommodate, just everything along those lines.
What is it? The L-shaped with the flares that you put out when I'm talking about bundle drops.
Talking about like a GMRS drop.
This might be more high tech than even what we were doing back in that time.
Now there's I think what you're talking about. It's a ground marked release system.
Right.
So you pretty much make an L with VS-17 panels for the daytime, or strobes or flares at nighttime. But you make an L shape, and as the aircraft flies over, that jump master is looking out the door. You know, the L is this way. This is the long axis of the drop zone. So they're flying up this way. As soon as these lights get on line, and they're in line, that's his green light. That's when he's pushing everything. So he doesn't have to talk to anybody on the radio. So for special forces or recce teams, GMRS is very enticing because I can go out and set up a GMRS drop zone to receive my resupply of food, ammo, whatever equipment, whatever I need. I can set that up and not even have to be there. I can go back off into my hide site or my patrol base and hear the plane fly over. I don't have to talk to anybody. They're just going to line those panels or strobes up or flares up, kick out where they're kicking out, and then I'm going to go out and pick it up, break everything down. And
do they do any adjustments for like the wind at the time or anything like that? Or
during the drop?
Yeah.
The aircraft is not. No, that's on you on the ground.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you just have to beat the villagers and everything.
Yeah, I kind of wing it.
Well, they're also like 500 feet off the ground too, right?
You can be, 300 to 500.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating. And like I said, they don't talk, like you don't hear much about what happens at the course. It's just, it was always one of the most coveted badges. It's a beautiful badge. And, the Army is all about.
They still have the National Guard Warrior Training Center at Fort Benning.
Yeah.
They still run their Pathfinder school. Fort Campbell still has their Pathfinder school. But the regular Army deemed it necessary to shut down the Pathfinder school.
Sure.
The proponent for all Pathfinder operations. Because we were at that schoolhouse, we were responsible for the trainings, National Guard Warrior Training Center, and responsible for Fort Campbell. We go up and audit them, but then you're going to shut down the schoolhouse.
Well, like the worst teams, it'll be back one day.
It will, hopefully.
And they'll reinvent it.
Yeah.
I mean, I get guys that came through Pathfinder when I was an instructor there at Regiment. I mean, I had a guy hit me up like 3 or 4 weeks ago. He's like, hey, I'm doing this and this, like on this drop zone. Can I do this or this? And I sat there and explained it to him, like, yeah, you can do this, but think about this and whatever. And he was like, can I get you to come out here and like go over this stuff? He's like, I feel like this is a dying art and it needs to be taught. I was like, yeah, man.
So if they didn't have a specific school for the drop zone, they had it for the other things, but they don't have it. Where do people learn those DZ skills now?
Warrior Training Center, National Guard, or Campbell. They tried a pilot program. I don't know. Well, so Jump Master teaches a little bit. Jump Master teaches carp drop zones, which is Air Force drop zones. So there's Army drop zones and Air Force drop zones. Army drop zones is GMRS and VEERS. GMRS is ground marked release system, and VEERS is verbally initiated release system. So you're talking on the radio, telling them when to drop. So those are Army. Air Force is CARP, computed air release point, which means the computer on the aircraft, that C-17 or C-130, is calculating everything.
Interesting.
You give them a grid, and it does everything. And that's the green light. So the green light in the aircraft, the C-130 or C-17, when you jump, that's all ran by a computer. Jumpmaster teaches that. So Jumpmaster still teaches CARP. Not sure if they started teaching VEERS or GMRS at all. There was a pilot program where they were just going to do, I think Pathfinder was just going to do drop zones, which I could see be a viable option because you can get those other certifications at other schools. So why not just teach drop zones? But we fall back in what we talked about at the beginning of the interview was Pathfinders and LURS are not viewed as special
Right.
in the American Army.
Right.
For whatever reason, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know why they don't. I think it's honestly senior people. This is my personal opinion. Senior people went to these schools or tried out for these units and didn't make it, and they're like, no. You know, they're never going to be special. I didn't make it. No one can make it. You know, so they don't want them to be special or elevated to something higher than them.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, I mean, look, it's sort of like giving. I mean, if Rangers are special, it obviously is the black beret that makes them so. So let's give it to the whole army, and the whole army will be special.
Exactly.
I mean, I get it, but it just seems like a real lack of foresight in that. You know, we're moving to this near peer arena. We don't know at any given time what combat will look like, and you know, we can say that we have, you know, drones and ISR platforms and all these things, but as SIGINT. Signals warfare, electronic warfare, cyber warfare come online. All of those things may be countered.
I think just looking at what we are planning for right now, what DoD is looking at is potential expeditionary warfare in the Pacific. Looking
That's
at
exactly where I was going to go.
very like long range. Like it's not going to be these like a 30-minute helicopter trip. These new vertical takeoff and landing helicopters we're going to adapt. They're looking at like much longer insertions, having people way out there. So I think that, having DZs and these sorts of skills are going to be imperative.
Well, it's like when you have this in the Indo-Pacific PACOM area, an island hopping campaign.
Right.
Who's on the ground setting up?
Right. Exactly.
These HLZs and DZs.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You got to have somebody there.
Absolutely.
And you know, and we can throw all the electronics in the world out there, but again, there are countermeasures to that. And even if they're just setting up like, you know, isolated random EMP bursts to clear areas, there are so many countermeasures that even when we start talking about augmented reality and you know, Blue Force trackers and what people might see in their headsets, if somebody hacks into that, you have a lot of blue on blue. Like, we still need to have the old techniques. Well, like, people still need to be able to navigate via compass and map. They still need to be able to set up a non-computer, you know, assisted drop. You know, these things, because the other thing is you can encrypt your signal so that nobody knows what you're saying, but they still know somebody's saying it. Yeah, if you're blasting out, you know,
it might be able to jam it.
Not only do they know that you're saying something, they can direction.
They can figure it out.
They can get a clock direction.
And with AI, like they're going to be able to triangulate so quickly once that comes online and is like set up that, you know, it amazes me that we have to relearn these lessons every single after World War II, after Vietnam. Like we have to relearn them every time.
You know, but because I'm a mega nerd, I read like the publications from Fort Benning and stuff like that, and they talk about how, you know, the electronic warfare environment may become so intense that, you know, sniper teams using these old school techniques, being bolt action rifles, glass scopes, making field sketches with pencil and paper, that they can actually penetrate into that EW bubble and do their operations and maybe take out jammers or whatever else needs to be done out there, without having their equipment interfered with.
Yeah, without having a signature.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah. So after you do your time at Pathfinder, working as an instructor there,
Yep.
and what's the next assignment for you?
I was a Pathfinder instructor for 2 years. And I moved on to, infantry or Ranger branch called and was like, hey, are you tired of Fort Benning? I was like, kind of. He's like, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And I was like, man, like I wouldn't mind RTC if you got it. And he's like, all right, what region? And I said, Southeast. And he's like, all right, I'll call you tomorrow. Calls back and he's like, hey, how does University of Alabama sound? I was like, dude, that sounds great. Like, roll tide, man. He's like, all right, you'll have orders in like 30 minutes. And I was like, cool. I get these orders and I look at them and it says, University of Alabama at Birmingham. I was like, what is this? University at Birmingham. So I had to like Google it. It's a whole other university I didn't even know existed. It's called UAB, University of Alabama at Birmingham. So not the roll tide I was thinking.
Right.
But it was only 2 hours away. And it actually worked out better, I think, than going to University of Alabama. A smaller program. I was the MS3 instructor. So I taught the juniors and got them ready for their summer camp that they go to. One of the most rewarding assignments I've ever been to. All the other stuff was cool, and you can write books and movies and stuff about. But teaching those young future Army officers what right is and showing them the ways and just kind of making that first impression on them before they come in and be an Army officer. And to have them still contact me almost daily, like, hey, this is an update. Like, hey, I'm an XO now, Are you proud of me? Yeah, I'm proud of you. But just kind of guiding them through their college career and their life. I can't tell you how many times I've had a cadet on my couch in my office just break down crying because something's going on in their life.
Yeah.
So here I am again.
Dad.
Yeah.
Being a mentor.
Yeah.
They looked at me as like a big brother. There was still an NCO in charge of me. He was like the dad figure, and he was awesome guy. I fucking love working with him. Travis is one of the best NCOs I've ever worked with. But he's very professional. He's very just. I told him when I left, I was like, "You're so professional, it pisses me off, dude." Why do you have a high and tight?
We've had a couple guys on here who their NCOs who their final assignment was ROTC. Javier Mackey and Paul Howe both come to mind, and they had similar things to say that it was a very rewarding experience.
It was very rewarding, and it was also one of the reasons I wanted to get out of the Army too, because the ones that I enjoyed teaching and the ones that were receptive, awesome, but there's always the ones that slip through the cracks,
right?
And you see that caliber of people coming in the Army, and then and they're going to be leading the Army,
right?
And then the direction the Army was going at the time too is not what we're used to,
right?
And I was like, man, this is going to be my last assignment. Like I'm done after this. But RTC was fun. It was
I think
one of the best last assignments.
I think Paul had something similar to say, and I don't want to put words in Paul Howe's mouth because I'm a little afraid of him. But I think he had a similar impression that he loved working with the soldiers and mentoring those guys. But it was also not totally happy with the direction the Army was going in.
Because that was my last assignment. I medically retired at 17 years, and I made that decision. It wasn't a light decision to make, had 3 years to go.
Yeah.
But I looked at it and I was like, can I do 3 more years? Because if I was going to do 3 more years, that was not going to be my last assignment.
Right.
Like, where was I going after that?
Right.
And to that point in my career, the Army had never told me where to go.
Right.
I had always chosen or volunteered. Like, they never told me, hey, you're going here, you're going here. So I didn't want the Army to tell me to go somewhere that I didn't want to go.
Right.
And I was like, do I want to spend 3 more years unhappy in an assignment that possibly sucks? Or do I want to medically retire now and get the same benefits I would as if I retired?
Right.
Actually, even better benefits. And
go out on a high note. Like
go out on a high
yeah,
note.
Yeah.
And go off and be happy and
Yeah,
make
yeah.
more money and do my own thing.
Yeah.
Not be told what to do every day.
Out of curiosity, for the ones you say that were like slipping through the cracks, like what was their motivation for going into the military? Like, why did they want to put
Money.
themselves through it? Money?
Money.
Yeah, not really the right reason to be there in that kind of job.
No. Money or just, to get out of where they were. I mean,
Well, that
The Army-
I can sort of get.
Yeah.
well, the Army. Well, I don't mean it like that,
Yeah.
but like the Army paid for their school. They couldn't pay for their school, so the Army paid for their
Right.
school, which is,
Okay.
I guess, money, but
Right.
same thing.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions for? Okay. Questions for Dustin from the chat?
Why are you so monotone?
It's from Jackson. Hold on. How much cross-pollination is there between BN, Recce, and RRC? Also, are BN Recce guys more likely to undertake CAC selection than line rangers?
How much cross pollination between what and what?
Battalion
Battalion
Recce,
Recce.
Battalion Recce, and RRC.
I'd say cross pollination was decent when I was there. Like I said, we filled some of their billets because they didn't have enough people to fill all their teams. So a natural.
A lot of those guys go to selection too for RRC.
My time there, I maybe had 2 guys go.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of line rangers go to well, not a lot, but it's a thing to go to CAG selection. Is that also with RRC, or do they more? Or, I mean, not RRC, but Recce.
Yeah.
Or do they?
Because you still have that mentality.
Sure.
You still have that. I want to go kill shit mentality.
Right. Right.
I want to go be the best of the best.
Right.
I had a couple guys go and a couple peers go as well while I was there. I had another guy. He was on the fence of, should I go to RRC selection or should I go to CAG selection?
Yeah.
And one of my buddies that's the RRC guy told him, like, go to CAG selection, dude. Like, why not go varsity if you can go varsity?
Right.
Go try out for varsity. And I think that's one of the biggest issues in today's society as a whole, civilian and military, is it's so easy to be a rock star because mediocrity is just rampant. Like, God's honest truth. Like, people are so mediocre, they will self-select and like, oh, I'm not good enough.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
They'll never select me.
Right.
Like, you don't know that, man. Just go try.
Yeah.
Like, go. I can't tell you how many selections I've been to.
Right.
I've tried out for everything under the sun. I've been told numerous times. You throw enough shit at the wall, eventually something will stick.
Right.
So it works out in the
Yeah,
end.
and you got to do some of the coolest stuff that the Army had going on, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And and that's one of the things that we've talked about on the show before is like we've had some people from the conventional side on before, but like the conventional Army and the Marine Corps, like they were out there hooking and jabbing like
All the
nonstop on these long ass deployments.
I've been there.
And they do not
seen both
get,
sides.
they don't they don't get the credit that they deserve
No, they
at
don't.
all.
And I have a lot of guys that I did the long 15-month or year-long deployment with, and then they got out afterwards.
Yeah.
And that's what they have. They have that 15-month deployment.
Yeah.
And that no one gives them enough credit for that.
Yeah.
And some of the best dudes. I mean, I have a group chat on my phone. It's like 6 of us from my very first platoon, and we talk every day. We're
Yeah.
just, bullshitting.
That's
there.
cool.
And that's what they have, and they deserve the credit.
Yeah.
And because they went through some shit, man.
Yeah.
You spend 15 months somewhere,
You get to know someone.
you learn somebody, and also in that environment, you kind of lose your humanity a little bit, man.
Yeah.
And it takes a little bit to get it back,
Yeah.
and some didn't get it back.
Yeah.
You know? So,
How was it for you when you went to regiment? Because, like, I was in Rangers during a peacetime military, and it's very different. But there was always this stigma until a guy earned his way, right? Like, until he showed that he was a good leader and was a good I don't want to say operator, because at the time, like, the Rangers were still, like CQB and stuff like that were just coming on board. Yeah. Like, it was still the premier light infantry, and we still did patrol bases and shit like that. But there was that stigma of being an import, right? How was it for you when you first showed up?
I never had that impressed on me.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was there. The only time I ever saw it happen is our very first. It was like the first month or so I was at the platoon, and we're doing team live fire exercises, and it was just a hot mess. And the platoon sergeant that I was talking about earlier, that was like, "I need your help."
Yeah.
I was like, "Hey man, can you go grab those guys and like teach them how to really break contact as a team?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, sure." So I kind of had to, kind of nut up and overstep the other team leaders that were already there,
Right.
and pull all their teams in. It was like, "Hey guys, like, bring it in. Let me show you guys how to do this," And those team leaders, they kind of stepped off to the side, and I was like,
Yeah, they're feeling you out.
Yeah.
like, who the fuck is this guy think
Yeah.
he is? But I think it was like, the week after that, I was sitting in the team room in the cages, and I was back there, and I had my big old SOP binder that my platoon sergeant forced me to make as a team leader in LURS. And it went everything from individual movement techniques to platoon operations. I was just sitting there flipping through it, just kind of refreshing myself because it had been a minute. And a squad leader, or one of the Recce team leaders, came over. For people that don't know, a squad leader in Recce is a team leader. It's the same. It's a E6. But he came over, he kind of stood on my shoulders, like, "What are you looking at?" I was like, "My SOP book." And he was like, "Can I see that?" I was like, "Just take it, dude." I was like, "You need it." I was like, "Just take it. You can have it, copy it, whatever." Because every team should have their own SOP, because everyone operates independently, or teams operate independently. But I said, as an import, no one was walking down the hallway hitting me in the nuts.
Right.
Nothing bad happened.
Yeah.
I was kind of intimidated, to be honest, because I didn't have a scroll on my right shoulder.
Right.
I had my LURS patch or my 2ID patch until I did that first deployment. And I put a scroll on, never took it off. And people got my respect. It was interesting because I didn't grow up in regiment.
Yeah.
So a lot of the E6s and below had no idea who I was. Because I didn't go to RIP with them. I didn't do platoon operations with them. I wasn't in the line with them. But everybody from like platoon sergeant above or first sergeant above knew who I was and respected me. And it was it's an interesting dynamic for a little bit.
Any more questions for Dustin?
Job here, thank you. Hey, all, Dustin, you talked about your conventional leaders, but what was your experience with officers at regiment? As I understand, operating is really the role of enlisted. So how are they at employing your guys' enhanced skill sets?
So officers in regiment, I'll talk about regiment as a whole, and we can talk about Recce PL if we want. Officers as a whole in regiment are very good at managing tasks and shielding their platoons. For lack of a better word, bullshit. Their main job is, be a politician with battalion, especially company level and platoon level. The PLs I had at regiment, I was there for 3 years. I think I went through 5 PLs as a platoon sergeant. And that PL, he was in charge of not only the Recce platoon, but also the RISTA platoon, which is the reconnaissance, surveillance, target acquisition. They do a lot of the tech stuff. So he was in charge of 2 platoons, but each platoon had their own platoon sergeant. It was a weird dynamic. Simultaneously, K9 and snipers had 1 PL, but 2 platoon sergeants. So that's kind of how that was set up as far as specialty platoons go.
Interesting.
But every PL I had was rock solid. They all left and went to SF. Yeah.
Questions for Dustin?
One from Chris Ward. I have a question. What was your favorite moment out of your entire career outside of retirement, obviously?
Chris Ward, that's my brother. Graduating Ranger School. Like, that is, I would think, yeah, graduating Ranger School was probably not the highlight of my career, but one of the proudest moments, because it is the premier leadership school of the Army, one of the hardest schools anybody could ever go to. Never been to Buds, but I'd venture to say it's harder than Buds. Sorry, Navy SEALs.
Spicy take.
Yeah, spicy take. I mean, Navy SEALs get to go home every night. Now, Buds, you can have a barracks room, bro, or you can go to your house. Don't do that at Ranger School. But, yeah. Because once you're a Ranger, you're always a Ranger, man. And that's the way I look at it. And I was super proud to graduate Ranger School.
Anything else?
Yeah, there's one last one from a Stacy Ward.
Oh, boy.
My favorite moment was being able to present him with a flag that had been flown on a B-52 that hit a target he called for.
Yeah. So that was my dad, Stacy Ward. He's talking about the operation. We were talking about the big push. So my dad was in the Air Force. He's a B-52 guy. Still has friends in the B-52 community. He's an electronic warfare officer, or electronic warfare technician guy. The B-52s during that time, they were flying over and dropping bombs. The Moab, which wasn't from B-52, but it was that time Mattis was in charge and shit was just raining, you know. But my dad caught wind that we were also there in Nangarhar and talked to the pilots, and they flew a flag for me and gave me a certificate.
That's pretty cool.
Oh, that's amazing.
Got some pull pins from like the arming pins from the from the bombs.
Yeah.
And like the little leaflets they dropped to, and he brought it to me on my birthday and stuff. It was pretty cool. Yeah.
So how has post-military service life been treating you? What are you up to nowadays?
Oh, man. Retirement's awesome. Don't have to shave anymore. Yeah, when I first got out, so my actual job, I'm a contractor for Department of State right now. Just doing stuff overseas. When I'm stateside, I've started a company called the Lite Sleeper, and we make ultralight. It's basically a whoopee. I'll explain what it's a whoopee with a sleeve to put a sleeping pad in and a pillow attachment. But it's just a light sleeping system for light backpackers. It weighs 2 pounds, so you don't got to take a whole sleep system or a stuff sack and all that, you know, bivy sack. And started that company. It's doing very well. We just started shipping last week.
Oh, congrats!
Yeah,
you started shipping last week.
You were showing me on your website earlier, and it's inexpensive. It's like what, $70?
Yeah, $70.
And
Plus
I mean,
shipping.
yeah, I looked at it. It's like I want one.
What? Yeah, absolutely. What's the website where people can get it?
Thelitesleeper.com.
Thelitesleeper.com.
Yeah.
Thelitesleeper.com. It's going to be down in the video description. Buy yourself a whoopee with a sleeping pad. That's the most amazing.
That's the Taj Mahooch.
It is.
Yeah. Caveat: it doesn't come with a sleeping pad.
Okay.
It comes with a pocket to put your own sleeping pad in, because everyone has their own preferences. So I'm not gonna
look. You
in
had
there.
me at whoopee. You had me at whoopee. Like the only piece of Army gear that ever
That's what I went with.
did
yeah.
what it's meant to do.
Well, I came up with the idea because I was sitting there packing my son's nap mat for school. I don't know if you know what a nap mat is.
Yeah.
So I was rolling his up, got out of the dryer. I was like rolling it up, put it in his backpack for school in kindergarten. And I looked at my wife, and I was like, "What? Why is this not a thing for adults?" And she's like, "What?" And I was like, "I love taking naps."
Yeah.
And I kind of like just sat there and thought about it for a minute. I was like, "Why did I not have this in the field?" And I hit up some buddies, like a buddy in Marsoc, Andy. And I was like, "You think this is a good idea?" He's like, "Dude, yeah. why is that not a thing already? I was like, I don't know. I'm going to go. I'm
buying one. Hey, everybody, make sure buy the Lite Sleeper, thelitesleeper.com.
I know.
You owe it to yourself.
I got a Scouts field trip coming up, camping trip with my daughter. So
Actually, I just had a guy, he just bought 3 for his Scouts.
all right.
Yeah, we shipped over 100 orders this past week.
That's
We
amazing.
just started shipping this last week and over 100 orders already. It's been
That's fantastic.
Awesome.
yeah.
Off to the races, man.
Other than that, though, I went and got certified as a bounty hunter. Just kind of keep things spicy at home.
Nice.
Yeah. You got to
Nice.
do that. So you go and knock on people's doors, unpaid parking tickets, bitch. You're coming with me.
Haven't done it yet. Yeah, I just got certified last October, November.
Okay.
Me and my buddy from RC that retired also. Yeah, we went and got certified together. I was like, dude, we should do this. So I was talking to a guy overseas that used to do it. It sounded really easy. I was like, why are we not doing this?
Yeah, like I talked to a dude who did bounty hunting at one point, and he had some wild stories.
Yeah.
But yeah, suffice to say, if like a dude that looks like Dustin comes and knocks on my door and is like, yeah, you're going to jail now. It's like, how much of a fight am I going to put up? Like
kinda-
I'm probably just going to go along.
That's kind of what the guy I was talking to said. Because I asked him, I was like, what's the, is it kind of like a bro code, like you don't know me, so you're not going to hire me type thing?
Yeah.
And he was like, no. He's like, if you and your buddy asked to work for me with your resumes and looking the way you do, he's like, I'm getting you every bounty I got.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but we just got our company certified back in March, so we haven't had the ability to go out and get anybody yet. But
This-
looking forward to it.
This dude, I remember him telling me a story about how he got on a flight to Honolulu, and they had like 48 hours to find this guy, or they were going to eat like a $50,000 bounty. I was like, holy shit! But then at the same time, the same guy told me, he's like, if I knock on a guy's door and it's like over unpaid parking tickets or something, and the bounty is, $2,000, and he offers me $3,000, I'm taking the money.
They do.
Yeah.
That's perfectly legal too.
Oh, is it really?
It's not like you're bribing a public official. Or, yeah.
They're paying their bounty. It's perfectly legal. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
As long as they pay their contractual fee, like you're good. You don't have to take them to jail every time. If they can pay it right there on the spot, you don't got to take them to jail.
Yeah.
Note to
No,
self.
I knew a guy who did it, and he said it's a lot of detective work. It's like find out who their girlfriends were, stuff like where are they holing up, and
And that's why
usually-
why we haven't done anything yet, because there's federal databases you can get access to.
Yeah.
But you have to have a company they give those accesses to a company, not a person. So we had to wait for a company to get certified
Yeah.
and ratified.
Yeah, I don't know if I can wrestle a 300-pound felon, but I'll be the guy with the paintball pepper pellet
No, the
gun.
beanbag.
I'll
right?
do that for
Yeah.
you. I'll do that.
Exactly. I was thinking about buying a taser.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I'll just go beanbag shotgun.
No, I think those beanbag.
I can do that
shotguns
for I can
yeah.
do that for you. I'll be your backup.
Would you rather? Yeah, I don't know. I think I would be more rebellious against a taser than a shotgun racking.
No, but I'm telling you, man, you just go and knock on the door, like, hey, come on, man, like, let's go, and like,
And that's, if you talk to a lot of bounty hunters, that's the process.
yeah.
Just treat them like a man. Like it's a business thing. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, dude, like you messed up. Like,
Right.
Come on.
Right. And they've already been to court. It's not like
They're gonna go spend like a day or two.
Yeah.
They're not
Right,
going back
right.
forever.
Yeah.
So bounty hunting, we got some Dustin the Bounty Hunter live TV coming, and anything else you want to throw out there that you're working on?
Nothing to think of, man.
Okay.
That's about it.
Shit, man. I mean, it's been a hell of an interesting military career and post-service life.
There's a ride.
Yeah, it's a ride.
Hey, D, was there anything on Patreon?
Not that I saw, no.
Okay.
Well, dude, thank you so much for flying in and doing this interview.
Absolutely.
It's been super cool, man.
Appreciate you guys having me, man.
Dustin,
This
it's
was
awesome.
fun.
Absolutely, and thank you, Les, for
Yeah, thanks, Les.
putting the shout out for us. Next week, I cannot. So after this whole interview, I cannot for the life of me remember who's on next week. I'm so sorry. But I promise it's going to be cool. Every episode of the Team
It's
House is
gonna be
pretty cool.
amazing.
It's going to be a thing.
Yeah.
It's going to be an event.
Jack will be there.
I'll be there. Dave will be there.
I'll be there.
D will probably be there
Yeah.
if he doesn't quit on us.
If D's
I'll
not
be there
there,
as long
he's
as my
somewhere else.
Back doesn't go out again. Yeah.
We're gonna have Gary Nosner.
Yes, Gary. So Gary was an FBI negotiator. He was recently on the Netflix documentary Waco, American Apocalypse.
Oh, wow.
Oh, shit.
He was in that documentary because he was one of the FBI negotiators early on, and then they kicked him out. There's a whole thing there that we will no doubt talk about. So yeah, I'm excited to talk to Gary, and I'm sorry that I couldn't remember initially. So we'll see you guys next Friday. We're in the 200s now, so episode 202.
And also go to the lightsleeper.com.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, man.
If you don't, the commies win.
Exactly, the terrorists win. If you
terrorists
don't
win,
get
company.
yourself a high-speed Whoopie stuff sack. And also check out our Patreon. Again, I'm going to plug it. Go down there, get ad-free episodes, man.
For less than a cup of coffee a month,
Exactly.
you can support
Come on, do
our
it.
alcohol habit.
So we will see all of you next Friday. Thank you for joining us. Thank you again, Dustin. And
Thank you.
take